Welcome to the Pride of Detroit PODcast, prideofdetroit.com, Pride of Detroit on Twitter, Pride of Detroit on Facebook. You know where to find us as we bring you every week the best damn Lions news content. And you know what? I hate calling it content. News, analysis, insight, opinions to at Chris Perfett on Twitter, at Perfett on Blue Sky. I want to commend my own reflexes because I tabbed back over to Zoom right as Jeremy Reisman, the fearless leader at Detroit Online, was giving me the one count. He usually counts me down from 5 before we go live on our video streaming platforms, and I completely missed it. So, because I wanted to see you wonderful people and spread the word. So, yeah, hey.
You made it in time. That's all that matters.
Right in under the deadline, as we always do with our writing. Jeremy Reisman, the fearless leader at Detroit Online. How are we doing today?
I'm good. This is kind of like the final quiet week of the offseason. And I shouldn't say final, but like things really ramp up next week. We got the NFL Combine, and I'll be down there for the first time next week. Free agency isn't far behind that. And then you got the draft stuff ramping up right after that. And so it feels like the calm before the storm. But we still got plenty to talk about. I don't want people to think we're not talking about anything today.
Thanks for helping me sell the podcast.
Yeah.
We got plenty to talk about actually on the podcast with a free agency look ahead, some more news on the offensive coaching staff front, and to help break that all down is the storm before the calm. Ryan Matthews, the rock god, at Ryan_POD. Hi, Ryan.
Hi. You know, I didn't realize while I was wary of the offseason last podcast, I kind of don't know what to expect because we weren't podcasting during the offseason last year.
That's right.
No,
So
for the first month or two we were.
We got the worst of it.
It'll be like the first time all over again. I don't know. It's like riding a bike, though. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll have our, hopefully our draft streams, 3 days of it, and who knows what else. But let's start. Today we're going to be looking ahead because as the POD philosophy is, you should talk about free agency first before you talk about the draft, something that everyone gets backwards. So we're going to talk about re-sign, let walk, other options for key UFAs for the Detroit Lions. Before we do that, we always clear out the news desk here. And I believe we have some more offensive coaching shakeups to discuss as the Detroit Lions. I really do believe that when we get closer to the season, we're going to be talking about a completely different looking Detroit Lions offense. Maybe for the better, maybe good, but definitely different. So to start us off, Jeremy, we've got new shakeups at positions on the offense.
Yeah, no, we got a lot of clarity because prior to this past week, the Lions were hiring a lot of offensive assistants, and people were like, why do they need so many offensive assistants? Well, it turns out because some of them are going to be positional coaches. But I think that the main newser from last week that kind of led to a domino effect of figuring out where everyone else's role was the Lions hiring Texas running backs coach / former NFL running back / former Jahmyr Gibbs
/
coach, Tashard Choice. Is going to be the team's new running backs coach. And when that news initially dropped, everyone panicked and said, oh my God, what's happening with Scotty Montgomery? Good news, he's staying. He's still the assistant head coach, but now he is the wide receivers coach. And as soon as the kind of dust settled there, and then you also had Tyler Roll becoming the new tight ends coach, replacing Steve Hyden. I'm looking at the positional coaches of this team, and I don't think you could have convinced me that, okay, you're going to lose Antoine Randall. Okay, you're going to move away from Scotty Montgomery as your running backs coach, and I'd be like, uh-oh, I don't like the sounds of that. But the way things have settled, I actually kind of love it. I kind of love the fact that Tashard Choice is reuniting with Jahmyr Gibbs, who is entering his third year as the presumed third best running back in football. I love the idea of, hey, if you have any concern at all about Jamison Williams losing a big mentor like Antoine Randall, why don't you put one of the most inspiring coaches on the staff in his room? And Scotty Montgomery has plenty of experience coaching up wide receivers. I really like how the dust is settled on this offensive coaching staff. What do you think, Ryan?
I'm a fan of it. Like, I think that I enter into this new Lions season with some like guarded optimism. I mean, you lose 2 tentpoles, right? And It's Ben Johnson, it's Aaron Glenn. And like you said, then there's so much other shuffling, and then there's like worries about, Scotty Montgomery gets he gets an offensive coordinator position interview. And it's like, okay, like, come on, can we stop just like losing,
Just looting everything, scraping the bottom of this barrel here.
sure, and coaches that you were hoping would eventually even stay in house, and they did get Kelvin Shepard coming back, and I thought that was a cool side note that Dave Burkett included, saying when he talked to Tashard Choice back in 2023 about Gibbs, he told me Kelvin Shepard is, quote, my best friend in the business. That's like my brother. So you have, again, what this coaching staff does such a great job of, what Dan Campbell has created is a culture of communication and togetherness and all being on the same page and rowing in the same direction. And I think that that's really important. And that's crucial to keep this thing rolling the way it is to have those open lines of communication, not just between, the offensive coordinator and the head coach, or the defensive coordinator and the head coach. It's all the assistant coaches and all of the positional coaches that seem like they have, this, these deep roots of not only working together but even playing alongside one another, or
Right.
or coaching on. It's really, again, it's the most interesting, Chris. It's the most interesting ecosystem, I think, in the NFL right now when it comes to a coaching staff.
Yeah, and I think that comes to, again, you mentioned it, former players talking to each other. Like I don't know if this could happen another 5 years into the future as Dan Campbell gets further away from being an NFL player. But the nice thing is those guys will know guys who had played, and we'll be able to pull some up. It's good that it happened, if anything, to the Lions now, again, rather than years down the road when Dan Campbell still has a lot of those connections to his playing days, where the guys on his staff has those connections to their playing days. I think there will be some brain drain eventually. Losing someone like Aaron Glenn probably gets some brain drain, but you just hope that Kelvin Shepard works out and you just keep building out the roots from that, because ultimately that's the philosophy, that's the value proposition of the Campbell era Detroit Lions. Is, again, like, look to all these years prior to that where you had a different way of doing business as far as offensive coordination, defensive coordination, where, like, yeah, defense might be former players, but a lot of time offense, those are guys coming up from QA analyst positions, tapped out Division III in college if they had playing experience at all. Not saying that that's bad, but that's certainly different from the model that the Detroit Lions have been trying to build here. So it's a credit to the resiliency. I just don't want to do it again repeatedly, Jeremy. But I think it's coming soon enough that it's like, all right, well, this hopefully we'll have to see what it looks like. And I think it's going to look very different in 2025 than the offense looked in 2023 and 2024, just because of the Ben Johnson factor. But I don't think that's going to be a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, because Dan Campbell has been kind of insistent. Like, he doesn't want too much to change, right? Like, he wants the heart of what this team
and he still has the players to do it. Yeah.
Right. But it's important to point out that, like, while I think the Lions are set up great in terms of their positional coaches, whether the offense sinks or swims without Ben Johnson is going to be largely based on the hiring of John Morton, right? The new offensive coordinator, maybe even David Shaw, the new pass game coordinator. Those are kind of the two biggest question marks, because as good as John Morton has, like, a history of a lot of different roles, his one offensive coordinator role did not go so well in New York. And look at that roster. You can't say that it was his fault, but it's going to be something a little bit new and different, working with a really good offense with a really, really high expectations instead of really, really low expectations. And it's interesting to me, because I do think they're in a good spot in terms of player development because they have those positional coaches, but that doesn't necessarily mean success on offense, because schematically, like, that is going to be a key. What do they look like? How much differences are they going to make? It's nice that Johnny Moe was here in 2022, so it's not going to. He has an idea of what the Lions wanted to be. So I actually don't expect a lot of schematic changes. It's just, to me, it's more of a matter of, like, okay, Johnny, can you game plan on weekdays? Can you call plays on game days? Those are the questions that I think we don't quite have answers to, but I feel optimistic about this offensive coaching staff. I feel like the Tashard Choice, who, by the way, has also coached like a baker's dozen really good running backs in college, despite the fact that he hasn't been coaching for like more than 10 years. For the first time since the Ben Johnson departure, I feel pretty good about this offensive coaching staff.
Ryan, I know this is the, do you want to run this experiment? I know sometimes we hand it over to you as far as some of these, or I can do this as we move on to the free agency primer.
Sure. I mean, I think it's pretty simple and straightforward. It's just the decisions that the Lions are facing here ahead of free agency. Like you mentioned, it's the more important thing to consider before you start getting into draft talk. And that's something that I think always falls by the wayside each and every year. And it's why we start with our free agency primer to kick off the offseason.
And we always keep it internal too, because I feel like it's always better of the devils, versus like the outside, and the outside can change too. Like, I mean, I believe we were sharing notes, Jeremy, and right before we hit record in the podcast, we got, a couple hours prior, we got news that T. Higgins was going to be franchise tagged. And I know there was plenty of Lions fans who were keeping an eye on him as maybe a replacement for someone like, say, if you let Tim Patrick go or try to find some money for another wide receiver out there to go after someone like T, but he's off the board. Yeah. I mean, you can't control what happens besides your guys.
The first step in every offseason is what are you going to do with your own guys? And so, yeah, that's the idea for this podcast is we're going to talk about the top options to keep that are free agents here in Detroit and kind of talk about whether we think the Lions are going to keep them, what it'll cost, and if they don't keep him, how they fill that role. Then what?
Yeah.
Then what?
Yeah.
That's right.
Then what? Yes. Well, let's start with the big one. Cornerback Carlton Davis, who had a fairly successful season, I would say. Suffered a freak broken jaw injury that took him out for quite a while. And I think the big sticking point for this, Ryan, is going to be a matter of the contract he might command at the end of the day. He's played himself into a pretty penny.
Yeah, it's always money, 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 especially with the premier positions. And cornerback is one of those positions. He signed that 3-year, $45 million deal back in 2022 off of his rookie contract. Made it to the end of it. It's time to cash in one more time, huh? Is that the sense that I think you would get from somebody like Carlton Davis? He's 28 years old. Is there going to be another time for him to cash in on a longer term contract with a bigger figure? I'm for signing him. To be very, very clear, I think he was one of the more underrated players on the Detroit Lions defense that didn't quite get as much credit as I felt like he deserved. So I'm not against the idea of opening up the pocketbook and shilling out for somebody like Carlton Davis.
I'm not either. I think this has to be maybe their biggest priority this upcoming offseason. And I know our live chat is filling up with concerns about injury, and they're not necessarily wrong. Like, obviously the jaw is a freak injury, but you got to remember, like, he also would leave a series. Like, it felt like almost every game. Like, there would just be a series where he had to sit out. And it's not great. But one quote from Dan Campbell sticks in my head that makes me think they are going to pay for this guy, no matter how much he costs. He was asked quite simply, was Carlton Davis, everything you expected when you made the trade for him last offseason? Dan Campbell says, quote, absolutely, and then some. That's been an outstanding addition, and as a matter of fact, I told him Saturday night, we're in the special teams meeting, I slipped right behind him. I think I said this yesterday. I said, man, one of the best moves we made was acquiring you, getting you here. That's in no uncertain terms. Dan Campbell doesn't mess around with things like that. And so I'd be very surprised if the Lions let Carlton Davis walk. And honestly, don't forget that he is costing the Lions a lot of money, whether he stays or goes.
Right.
In fact, they can kind of control. Already. He's got a ton of dead cap. I wish I could find it right now, but I can't find it. It's a lot of dead cap. It's like $9 million in dead cap, 9 or 10 million in dead cap. If the Lions extend him, they can actually lower that number for next year and continue to have that money kicked down the road because there's so many void years currently on that they can keep that signing bonus he signed way back when extended.
So I agree with you guys, but just in the sake of us not just all sitting here nodding our heads together, what would you say to the fan who would probably argue, well, you drafted Terry and Arnold, you drafted Ennis Rakestraw, and like Amik Robertson is giving you gave you good production at the end of the year. Like I'd rather have those as the CB options moving forward. What would you say to someone like that? Because I have my answer, but I'm just kind of curious.
Are you sure you want that? In all seriousness, I don't think that there was enough tape from Terrion Arnold that led me to believe that he can be the number one corner from day one. And if you want to make the argument, well, you can have Amik Robertson. He could play outside corner and put Terrion with him, and then you can still kind of move him along. Well, then my answer is, who's playing slot? If it is Ennis Rakestraw, again, do you know that Ennis Rakestraw is ready to be your starting nickel corner? He might be. It's just the other part of the Dan Campbell quote that Jeremy left off is maybe one of my favorite parts of the quote, is him saying there are things that he understands that he can kind of help the young guys with technique wise, or things that you see when it comes to game planning. Yeah. Dan Campbell saying that about Carlton Davis. It's like, It makes more than enough sense to bring back Carlton Davis at 14, 15, $16 million a year for a couple of years, few years, absorb that dead cap, move it down the road. And you have a guy who can bring these guys along, Jeremy.
Yeah. Jeremy, to you, I would ask, so assume if he does walk, if he does decide like, hey, he wants to go somewhere else, what are the options that the Lions could go to? I guess that's kind of the external, that's the internal option, is like, all right, well, you hope you got enough production out of the two guys you drafted in the top 2 rounds in 2024 to start to fill this gap. But what could be some of the external options, or is that enough even internally?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think that's enough. Like, the Lions could go into 2025 with the idea that you want Amik and Terrion as your starting outside corners, and you want Ennis Rakestraw as your starting nickel. That makes sense to me. The problem is you need a ton of depth. You're like Ryan said, like, that is relying on a lot of players that have not held those roles for a long time.
But I think we're talking about, you need a starter. You would need to go out and get a starter on free agency.
And here's the thing: if you are going to get a starter and cornerback, you're going to have to pay. And so if you're going to have to pay, they clearly love Carlton Davis. Why not just pay for him? To me, it doesn't make sense to go after one of the other top options, right? Like DJ Reed, Javarius Ward, Rasul Douglas. You're just going to be playing these guys just as much, if not more, than you are Carlton Davis. So to me, if the option is, if the thought is, we don't want to pay this much, we think we have other starters in-house, you can go bargain bin shopping if you want, I suppose. We can play the Stephen Gilmore game again and try to go after a 34-year-old corner. You could do that. You could go Jonathan Jones from the Patriots, good physical corner that could fit. Like, to me, those are your two options. You either go out there and you pay Carlton Davis what he's worth, or you're signing a 30-some-year-old cornerback who still has a little bit of his game left, and maybe draft another corner.
Oh, man, yeah. Or you can, everybody loved the Marcus Davenport signing so much. Can do something like that.
Right.
All right, let's move on to the next name on the list. Offensive guard Kevin Zeitler. In a very interesting situation now. I think Ryan talk about Carlton Davis. I think we all agree he's not ready to get pushed off by some of the young guys out there. But the question of Christian Mahogany has kind of raised this to an interesting level. But I guess this kind of becomes a question more between Zeitler versus Graham Glasgow at that point. Take this as you will. I guess I see this as a several-fold question. Do you value Zeitler over those other options right now as one of the guards? And how much are you confident that Christian Mahogany has taken that step to become a starting guard for the Detroit Lions?
I think there needs to be an entire summer to help us better suss out that situation with Christian Mahogany. Do I love what he did in a couple of spot starts, and one of them being a freaking playoff game? Yeah, like, there was a lot of really encouraging good stuff. But I want to see him win that job in training camp, and you can afford yourself that opportunity when he is a day 3 draft pick. And he's a guy who, again, remember, he missed almost all of his rookie, offseason and training camp with mono and stuff. So I love the idea of Mahogany as A, depth, and B, somebody who can play himself into a starting spot. But Jeremy, when it comes to Kevin Zeitler, one more year, run it back, one more year. And I think the thing that was most encouraging this year was his highest run blocking grade as an NFL player coincides with him joining the Lions and Hank Fraley. I don't know if that unlocks something. I don't know if, part of that PFF grade is because he got to play next to Penei Sewell, but it helps. It helps. And are you in the same boat that, hey, if he wants to keep playing football, why not keep playing football in Detroit for another year?
Right. Yeah. I think that is part of the equation, right? Is whether retirement is in the conversation here. He didn't play in the final games. Body's maybe not holding up as well as it did. I mean, that's just speculation at this point, but at the same time, like, you're in your 30s. I can speak from experience. Yeah. Body doesn't hold up great when you get injured in your mid to late 30s. But I thought it was really interesting when Brad Holmes was asked about re-signing Zeitler. He said, like, well, at the beginning of the year, there was some verbiage stuff, and, like, he was kind of getting used to the new system. But, actually by the end of the season, he was playing really well. And then he said, there's retirement stuff where he's like, at that age, you kind of have to have conversations with these guys. But, once we do, we'll have those conversations. And so I think there's obviously interest in bringing him back. I think he's a great scheme fit. I think he's great for what they want in that right guard position because he's just a mauler. And so, yeah, if Zeitler's in, absolutely you bring him back. I do think Graham is part of this conversation. I don't know if we've had this discussion on the podcast, Ryan, but we've had some spirited debates about Graham in the Slack room a little bit because, listen, you talk about Christian Mahogany. Is he the starting right guard next year? Is he the starting left guard next year? Is he a reserve? And a lot of is surrounding Graham, who costs, what was it, like $7-8 million in cap space?
The little over 7, I think, yeah.
The problem is if you cut him, you take on like 70 to 80% of that. You free up maybe $2 million in cap space. You're still eating a lot of his dead money. Is it better to have Graham Glasgow at an elevated salary, elevated cap hit, or is it better to not have him and still hang on to $5 million of that contract? It's a tough debate, but to me, I really like the idea of saying, hey, Zeitler, you're back, $7 million, 1 year, $7 million deal. Graham, you can stay, but you're now in a competition with Mahogany for that starting left guard position.
Do you think he's ready, Chris? And don't let Dune influence your answer.
I know. That's the big question. Well, here's the thing. Here's the ultimate thing that's going to keep Glasgow up regardless. Mahogany can't play center. Or at least not in the way that Glasgow can play center. And like at this point, you have to factor in that at some point Frank might get hurt.
Yeah.
Like that is a skill that the Lions do not have. Like unless Kingsley Ekwakun, like from the practice squad, you hold on to him and he ends up turning into something that is NFL caliber, which is quite doubtful. Although I liked him a lot coming out of Florida. Like, you don't have someone on that roster that has the flexibility of Graham Glasgow among the interior offensive linemen. Yep. Like Zeitler can't play center. Mahogany can't play center. Like you'd be asking them to do that for the first time, whereas Glasgow has center experience and can also play, a right guard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the other thing too, to kind of fold in maybe a little bit of draft is if the Lions do re-sign Kevin Zeitler, I don't think that deters them from drafting an interior offensive lineman.
Not at all.
As early as day one, right? So It's a little bit different from the cornerback discussion, though, because if they don't re-sign Carlton Davis, I don't see them being aggressive on day one or maybe even day two to get a cornerback because you'd want a more veteran guy, like we mentioned. So It's a little bit of a interesting approach when it comes to free agency and then how you're going to attack the draft, just because how those two rooms look so different, right? Like in the guard room, it's Keiro Owashika and is it Colby Sorsdal? I don't know. Like maybe Michael Neese. Like I don't know what's going on. Like I think that it definitely has to be a priority whether or not they re-sign Zeitler or not.
Yeah. And I think before. Oh yeah.
I was going to say, like, free agency is tricky with that position, though, too, right? Because if you want to go young guy, you're going to have to pay a ton. Mm-hmm. And so, like...
At guard, right? We saw it with Jonah Jackson.
Right. And Jonah Jackson, and not always, those young guys don't always work. Jonah Jackson did not work out at all for the Rams.
Right. And so, like, I was looking, and, like, Tevin Jenkins is kind of appealing to me. I know picking from a Bears offensive line seems like a very poor idea, but he's young. He's had a little bit of an injury history, which either is a good or a bad thing, depending on what, like...
Brad
Holmes rubbing his hands together, but, like, maybe he comes on a little bit of a discount. But he's actually a pretty decent run blocker. He's played both right guard, left guard, played a little left tackle his rookie season, and he's definitely got that kind of mean streak that they're looking for in that right guard position. But he's gonna cost a lot. And so then do you just go a different veteran guy that isn't Kevin Zeitler? Do you go Brandon Scherf? Do you go Zach Martin with the Cowboys? Like maybe Zach Martin makes a lot of sense.
This is tricky too, because we're starting to evolve into an era of NFL. We talked about it on the post Super Bowl podcast. Like, interior pressure is becoming the new meta for pass rush.
Right.
You do need a very good set of pass rushing guards and a center who can really hold. The center has to hold. So like, you not hold, like actual hold. You know what I mean. Yeah. I'm trying to do like either way. Like, so this is something of importance, and like, yeah, you might. I think what you have with Zeitler is someone in house that you can trust in doing those things. He's graded very well in multiple games throughout the season, playing his guard position. I would yeah. I like the Jenkins idea, but like if you are going external, I would like someone who's very good at pass rushing, which is tough to get. Which is very tough to get. All right, one more before we take a break. Tim Patrick. This one's a little bit more gray to me, because as much as I like Tim Patrick, Ryan, at the end of the day, it's just the Josh Reynolds role. And Tim Patrick had a few games, but he's getting on the wrong side of 30. And it's ultimately taking the fan part of me out of it. How much did he play really above what I would say in the Lions system a replacement level?
I think it's hard to say just because of that role, right? But I do think the thing that was really well received for his time in Detroit is he made the play when he had to make the play. And it wasn't just catching a ball when he needed to catch a ball. It was being there on a key block. I mean, how often did you see a replay and said, man, look at Tim Patrick down there making getting in the way. Maybe even not, driving his guy out of bounds or anything, but just like savvy, knows how to position his body, can make the catch when he needs to make the catch. Like, I like Tim Patrick, and if he wants to keep playing football, I think the Lions should pay for Tim Patrick to come back and play more football for the Detroit Lions.
I was always impressed on definitely some of the comeback routes. He would come, like, getting pushed out there, but then, and also Jeremy, like, it's not like the Lions have a lot of other internal options right now for that X role either.
No, and I hate this year's free agency wide receiver class.
You don't want Mike Williams?
No. But to stick with Tim Patrick, like everything you guys said is absolutely true. And what I like about him is like, he's no nonsense when the ball's in his hand too. He just like, let's get the first down and live another day. Like, we don't need to do some of the crazy stuff that maybe someone else on the team likes to do a lot once the ball's in his hand. And yeah, he's such a perfect fit for what they want to do. His play to me isn't declining as much as someone think it was. He's going to require a bit of a pay bump now that he's put together a full healthy season. So, I think the Lions got him for the vet minimum last year. I think maybe, Justin Rogers, who I like and trust with some of the salary cap stuff, said $3.5 million. That's an easy yes for me. That's an easy yes. Go ahead and do it. And one thing to also kind of consider, and granted this is kind of a tenuous connection, but John Morton, the new offensive coordinator, was in Denver.
Not Johnny Morton.
With Tim Patrick for a year, right? And he was the pass game coordinator there, so probably had at least a little bit of a relationship. Can see what he does. I know he was injured all season, so he didn't get a ton of time with him, but I think that might matter a little bit. So to me, I don't. Yeah, I mean, DeAndre Hopkins. Do we want him after what we saw in the Super Bowl?
No, it's so sad to talk about DeAndre Hopkins that way, though. Don't talk about DeAndre Hopkins that way.
I'm sorry. The Lions aren't going to get involved with like Chris Godwin or Stephon Diggs, and like I was looking like you could.
Darius Slayton. Are you interested in Darius Slayton?
No, I'm not. There's one guy that would interest me a little bit. But before that, I do want to like the Lions could go the route of like the retread wide receivers of Jared Goff's past.
Oh, who now?
Brandon Cooks, wow. Robert Woods. Brandon Cooks is more of a Z. He's not really the X. Robert Woods, he's just washed. Like he's done.
How old is he at this point?
Bobby Trees? How dare you?
I'm sorry.
Do you want them to trade for Cooper Kupp? Or you want to keep on going with the Jared Goff retreads?
Stop it.
Robert Woods is like 32. He's gonna become one of the elders. He's like already the elder statesman at that position.
I wonder how tough it was for all parties involved when Antoine Green had that injury in the preseason, because he was I think he was going to be the plan at the X. Now, not saying that he would have kept them from getting someone like Tim Patrick, but he was definitely a project that I thought that they believed in. So I think this year it becomes a bit of a priority in the draft for them to find a guy who fits that role long term.
And we've talked about the opportunity cost of drafting wide receivers in the draft. It is not like other positions. There's so many receivers that come out every year now that, someone like that could absolutely be got.
The one name I'll throw out there is Nick Westbrook-Ikhine from the Titans. That dude is a monster. He's 6'2", 211, coming off a season in which he had 9 touchdowns. So he might cost a little bit, but like his overall production wasn't great. But he's, big bodied receiver, could kind of fit that role. I remember him playing a pretty decent game against the Lions, if you could say that for anybody in that Lions-Titans game on Tennessee's side. So I don't know. Well, he's just a guy that stuck out when I was looking at a free agent list.
Well, you know what will get you great production without a terribly high cost? Righteous Felon and Craft Jerky and Meat Sticks. We'll help you with the cost in just a second. Keep listening, because it's the jerky that fuels the Pride of Detroit POD every day. All kinds of meat, even through the off season. Each 2-ounce bag of jerky has 16 to 20 grams of protein. Each meat stick has 8 grams. If it's good enough for us, it'll be good enough for you too. Righteous Felon is based in Westchester, Pennsylvania. They use locally sourced, all-natural Black Angus beef, and they pride themselves on superior quality, revolutionary branding, and unique flavors that go beyond the stereotypical jerky offering. And for those costs, keep your salary cap down. Go to righteousfelon.com and use the promo code POD15 at checkout. It'll get you 15% off your order. Sometimes we get a little extra bonus on top. But we haven't had one of those in a second. But trust me, POD15 is active year-round. Get you 15% off your order, no matter how big, how small. That is promo code POD15 at righteousfelon.com. When we come back on the Pride of Detroit PODcast, more internal free agents. More. That's next. Hi, chat.
What's up, everybody?
Hi.
I like Liam's idea of just signing Keenan Allen so he can't hurt us. Does not fit what the Lions need at all, but just you're paying him to not
remove
play
him
for
from the
another team.
board. Remove him from the board. Yes.
I'll get to some alerts here real quick, and then we can talk about whatever.
Yeah, I need to step aside for a second, so you go ahead and do that without interruption this time.
Perfect. Andre, thank you for the follow. You're probably not watching, but appreciate you, buddy. RGA, 27 months subscribed to the channel. Sammy Boys, 25 months subscribed to the channel, says 25, woohoo. Justin Sane, 35 months, says 35 months, also woohoo. LJ, 58 months, says my goodness, it's going to be a great offseason. Positive vibes. Have we turned the corner of like being grumpy about the offseason?
I don't know if I felt grumpy, but I was just begrudging it for a long time.
Yeah. I feel
like as soon as the zeros hit.
Yeah.
The playoff game, like my first thought was like, I'm going to hate the offseason.
Yeah. I'm definitely over the Lions not like being in the playoffs anymore. Obviously no one's in the playoffs anymore. It's over, but
oh yeah. I got over that pretty quick too.
And I think in general I'm like, okay, let's embrace the offseason a little bit. Let's go against what you normally thought. But then like some of the offseason articles that have already been created have been just like chipping away. And just like, I want to hold strong. I want to like, let me do some research about the draft before I go to the NFL. Listen, I'm turning a new page here, Ryan. I'm going to the NFL Combine for the first time.
I don't know who you are or what you did with Jeremy.
And like I said, like I think there is something to say about the Tashard Choice hiring that was like, okay, I see the vision now on offense a little bit. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to look forward. My mock draft does not drop tomorrow, RGA, but
make sure to tag him.
Yeah.
If you want yours graded.
No.
That's at Detroit on Lion. I'll put it in
Stop it.
Put it in
Stop
chat.
it.
Put it in
Yeah,
chat.
here.
Do it on Blue Sky. Send me all your mock drafts on Blue Sky.
No, don't say that.
But anyways, like, I don't know. I'm a little bit. There's a little bit of excitement in me because I'm not like. Part of what I think my main point was going to be of today's podcast, I'm just going to say it early, is I think free agencies might be boring this year. I think it might be boring. I think it might be
a
filled
lot of
with the Brad
re-signing your
Holmes
own guys.
special, which is Brad Holmes. He'll continue to remind us that re-signing your own players are splash moves, right? It's kind of one of his favorite go-to idioms here, and I think he's
Dude, but I would believe him this year more than I ever have.
right.
Like Carlton Davis and Kevin Zeitler would be a fantastic free agency. Like, great job. Like,
Yep.
if he were to re-sign the 3 players that we talked about in the first segment, I would be really happy with the Detroit Lions offseason. It would get an A from me.
It's true, but like, here's what I know what's going to happen, and it'd be in the back of my mind too. I think it was 2014 to 2015 where they had a really good 2014 season. They kind of just ran it back in 2015. They didn't make a lot of splashes. They kind of just held on to what their team was and didn't add on to it. And it didn't work. And I think people would freak out a little bit, especially given that this offseason started with, hey, let's go get Myles Garrett. For them to like just re-sign their own players, people are going to freak out. I'm not even saying it's wrong or that's what's going to happen. But I think that memory lasts in a lot of Lions fans' head. And that would kind of re-earth if the Lions didn't do anything. Like, this didn't work last time they tried it. But at the same time, like, there's already been more sustained success here, right? Like, there's already more of a proof of concept. You can make one deep run and it not work the next year, and it's not necessarily about your off seasons. Maybe more about like, you were never a real team to begin with.
No, Jeremy, it shows that the Lions are complacent, that they're not interested in winning.
Yeah, right.
You know,
Myles Garrett now, Myles Garrett forever.
The big difference though with that 2014 to 2015 though is the player they lost, and I know you know who it is, Jeremy.
That's the Sioux year, right?
Well,
No.
yes, he was a big one.
Yeah.
But
Fairley also leave that year too.
Maybe I'm thinking of a different. Is that not the year that I'm thinking of? It might have been 2011, 2012. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, 2011 was the Saints playoff game where they got annihilated and then they were bad. But 2015, they were on that huge losing streak. They went overseas, played Kansas City. They were what, 1-6 or 1-7 or something like that.
1-6. Yeah, I remember because I think when they got home, that's when they fired Mayhew.
Yeah, and then they proceeded to win 6 of their next 8 to finish the season 7-9.
Right.
But they also know DeAndre Levy, Chilean parasite.
God, the Chilean parasite year.
So your 2014 defense that like was good,
great.
Great, top 3 in
was also
almost every metric, lost Levy and Sue. Oh, that's gonna hurt.
And I think also like they had Ezekiel Ansah, but also he spent a lot of that time hurt. I believe. I'm trying to remember.
Chances are good. I mean, it was Ziggy's calling card.
Yeah.
He actually played 16 games that year.
Oh, hey. I must be thinking of next year or something.
Had 14 and a half sacks, and everybody
odds.
learned the loss of Ndamukong Suh.
Yeah.
Is there a Ndamukong Suh on the roster that could leave right now and have you like pull your hair out?
Well, I guess the thing with Ndamukong Suh leaving is that he left and then immediately was like not good with the Dolphins.
Yeah, that didn't work out for them at all.
Yeah, that was very Albert Hainsworth.
Ooh,
of a.
It wasn't that. He wasn't.
I know,
that
but
bad.
it was definitely a big splash signing by the Dolphins that just cratered.
But it was also impossible for him to live up to that deal. The deal was too expensive for him to live up to it.
It was excessive. And he wasn't bad, and he ends up like, I believe his final few years in Tampa, he was like, he wasn't 2014 good, but he was like a respectable, pass rusher.
Yeah, he'd become a role player, which was more fit for where he was in his career.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get back to some of these alerts. That was my fault that I got off track there. Robo 1207, 39 months, says Brad Holmes' big move is going to be signing Trey Smith championship. Okay. That'd be a big move. Irwin, 40 months, says 40. The amount of sacks from the Lions defensive line next regular season. I like that you only include regular season too. Because they're going to get another 15 in the playoffs. 3 games.
Interesting.
Dan Pask, 44 months, says I feel pretty clueless for this year's draft. DL is all I know. Go Lions. And thanks, POD. You're welcome, buddy. Thanks for joining us as always. 80 Jerome, they give her the 4-month subscribe using that Twitch Prime. Joshua Mercer, 54 months using Twitch Prime. And Special K, thank you for the follow, which is always a good reminder. Love it if you follow us on YouTube and Twitch. Hit those subscribe or follow buttons, whatever it is, because not only, that helps improve our viewability. People see us more with more people. We're part of the algorithm. The more people that follow us, and that's a great way to support us that doesn't cost us a dime. Another way to support us that doesn't cost you a dime, unless, it costs you if you're already subscribed to Amazon Prime. It doesn't cost you a dime because you can link that Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. If you don't have a Twitch account, you're on YouTube right now. Jump over and make a free Twitch account. It's easy. It takes like 2 minutes.
Hell yeah!
Go to our page.
You were rhyming there for a minute.
Was I? I didn't even notice.
Yeah. Won't cost you a dime. If you have Amazon Prime, won't take you too much time.
Whoa! I'm not going to continue to try.
All right,
try.
Try.
That's close.
Try. But anyways, if you
reading.
have an Amazon Prime subscription, you go over to Twitch, make a free account, link the 2 accounts. You can hit the purple subscribe button here on Twitch. You use the Prime sub, click that checkbox, and you subscribe to us here on Twitch for free. It doesn't cost you anything. But it supports us in the same way a paid subscription does, and you get no ads on YouTube or Twitch. When you subscribe, so do that. I finished.
Gamble, yes. Jeremy should do the rest of the podcast in mime. Look, you guys had that opportunity back in November, but we weren't giving out mutes anymore, right?
We could do a whole podcast in limericks.
We wouldn't last past 30 seconds.
Not with that attitude.
Or any sort of realism.
No, just a lot of planning. I've seen someone do a 20-minute video of limericks.
That's insane.
True says, we'll let my higher-ups at Amazon know we have a new jingle.
There you go. Got to pay us, though. Residuals.
Come on. Something.
As soon as, listen, this is already on an Amazon platform, so I think that means we have copyright. That's how laws work.
Or they took the copyright from us.
Oh, shoot.
We've already signed it.
Shoot.
Do we have the Greek on retainer?
Wait, Nick, are you here?
Do we need lawyers?
Calp, thank you for the 2-month subscribe to us on Twitch. Use the Twitch Prime, so I'm going to assume that you followed directions. Maybe you didn't, but I'll take credit for it either way. All right. We are through with
Holy
alerts.
Shit.
We're caught up. Are we going to talk hockey now? Or are we going to talk how dumb the NBA All-Star Game is?
I just want to recognize that now with how this calendar has moved with the Super Bowl, we go straight from the Super Bowl to just handbrake, not just on football, but all sports.
It's true.
Like this weekend was brutal. We have 4 TVs in the studio and a streaming TV, and I think I was watching like alpine skiing because I couldn't find anything else to put on that was like sports related for the people in the studio.
ESPN News, I tweeted about it, had the Air Guitar Championships or something like that airing on Sunday.
And yet still more of a sport than pickleball.
Dang, you're coming for pickleballers?
No. I'm not alone, and I think one of the FSR hosts had it best. It was that pickleball is a sport for people who want to pretend to be athletic. You cannot actually be athletic and play pickleball. You could be an athletic person, but you cannot evidence your athleticism by playing pickleball.
Listen, I'm a tennis person, and I, by nature, have to hate pickleball. It's just, I don't have an option. I just have to hate them because they're taking up our courts. that take by your coworker sounds like someone who has never played pickleball.
No, this is watching like a 50-year-old Andy Roddick out there just kind of like mulling about long after the tennis has passed him by. Anyway.
Lions Blood says Cornhole League on ESPN. When I visited
That's
Reno,
been around for a while. That Cornhole League, I see it every now and then.
When I visited Reno out in Boston, we were watching that, and I'm going to be honest, we watched the most thrilling end to a cornhole game, and I'd never forget about it. And I can't even explain it, but it was legitimately crazy. And I think we were watching it ironically, but by the end we were like, this is kind of awesome.
Can you bet on those?
I'm not answering that
Probably.
question. I'm not answering that question. One,
well.
because I don't know that.
Two, you probably have to go offshore.
Which is, I mean, that's not an issue, right? The thing I want to talk about might surprise you guys. The NASCAR Truck Driver Series, Daytona 500.
Yeah?
Go look up who finished 10th in that race. In the NASCAR Truck Driver Series, look up who finished 10th in the Daytona 500 for the
Number
Truck
10
Driver Series.
Is fuck my entire life, really. Really? Malcolm?
Malcolm in the middle of the
I knew he
pack?
was racing, but I did not
Muniz.
think I knew he was racing. I knew he had taken up a racing career. I did not realize he was in the truck series. Holy boats.
Yeah. He's a driver, man.
Driving the Ford F-150 for Raum Brothers Racing.
Why isn't Frankie Muniz on some of
Front
the
page
decor at
news.
Ford Field? Ford Field. If he's driving the F-150, why is Frankie Muniz not part of Ford Field and what's going on?
I
there?
did not. I thought he might have been like kicking around one of those like downstream from IndyCar or something. But like truck series is that's high level. That's pretty high level. It's
Yeah.
like that's right before NASCAR proper.
I don't have a comment. It's just you threw if you had given me 2 million guesses, I don't think I would have ever pulled Frankie Muniz.
No. Would you have guessed one of the other brothers first?
No, because I don't know any of their names.
I don't either.
I probably would have guessed Bryan Cranston.
Yeah.
So, based on me finding out this information, I was like, okay, well, now I need to learn a little bit more about Frankie Muniz and his journey into Truck Driver Series. He was inspired by Bryan Cranston to like do the celebrity race. And then he did the celebrity race and he ended up winning it. He was like, I had never experienced such a thrill in my life. So like I was just like hooked on driving. After
Right,
that.
because like I'm pretty sure Bryan Cranston, because I know IndyCar still has a big series out in Long Beach, and I know they had for a very long time they had a celebrity race, and I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure. Okay, I'm finding some stock photos where some copyrighted photos where Bryan Cranston is in celebrity races. I don't know. It was at Long Beach. They used to hold as part of that IndyCar, Hollywood celebrity racing, and Cranston was in those too. So we've got a full line of from Bryan Cranston racing celebrity at Long Beach to Frankie Muniz winning, coming in 10th in Daytona truck.
I like this comment from Dustin White. It said one of the porters did a video with drivers asking if they knew Frankie Muniz, and most said they knew him as Agent Cody Banks.
Agent Cody Banks.
Which
That's awesome.
that's making me feel old, but it's funny.
Hell yeah. God,
Malcolm in the
I should
Middle,
probably-
one of the most underrated shows of all time.
I would say I don't know about underrated. I would say probably definitely more influential. Oh, you know what? Great example. I would say it's like the kids show version of Joy Division. And that not everyone it was not as popular. Joy Division New Order. The thing with that is because I know they were up for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Everyone will tell you the thing with Joy Division is it wasn't the most popular band, but it was your band's favorite band. And I feel like Malcolm in the Middle is that to kids shows.
Yeah. But I wouldn't even call it a kid show. Like, that seems insulting to call it a kid show almost, because I think it holds up now. To me, like, I put it in the exact same category as King of the Hill, where it's just like,
Really?
King of the Hill played third fiddle on Sundays on Fox, but it may have been better than most, if not everything else that was on that show.
Oh, this is the 30 Rock argument.
It's
just
kind
being...
of right.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Okay.
Now, I mean, like, I can't say that either show was like extremely underrated, because they both had extremely long runs, right? Like, they were on TV for a while.
Yeah. How long was Malcolm on for?
It seems like a long time. I don't know. Like, they aged.
Not enough to have him like really grow up. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I feel like they never had their moment as the best at what they were doing, you know?
So the Philip Rivers of television series.
Yes.
7 seasons for.
That's honestly not as many as I thought, but those
no,
are
but
big
consider how much
151 episodes.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, consider how much like a child grows in those, and how much his role as a like elementary / junior high / high school student is evolving over 7 damn years.
Yeah. I love both those shows. And if either of them are on, King of the Hill is always on, by the way. It's one of those, is it FX maybe, that it's just like,
yes, yeah,
it's always on. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to sit here and watch 3 episodes of King of the Hill while I'm doing something else.
Why shouldn't King of the Hill always be on? It is.
Mike Judge has a really good ability to recreate like subcultures.
I am very curious, like, because there is definitely a alternate timeline in the quantum universe where King of the Hill doesn't end, but Simpsons does. And I'm curious how much King of the Hill would have held up in ways that Simpsons probably hasn't held up. Like, Simpsons is Simpsons is legendary. I think, but I prefer King of the Hill. I think part of that reason I prefer King of the Hill is there's an end to King of the Hill where it's like the quality doesn't just completely drop off the cliff.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely shows you how important writing is, as well as shelf life. Like, if you strike that right balance between writing, shelf life, then you end up with a show like King of the Hill versus
I think it would have
a show like The Simpsons, right? Like, the writers start coming in and out. The show, I mean, even like South Park to an extent, I think, right? Like,
sure.
Absolutely,
I think there's something
South
to
Park.
it.
South Park's weird because I feel like early writing for South Park was not great. Then they found their niche, and then they lost their niche. Like, there's definitely like a middle life period that is like the golden age for South Park before they really got up their own ass.
Bill Hader.
It's kind of crazy to think he was a writer there.
It's insane. Like, the whole SNL 50 thing over the weekend too was just like, oh man, I did not realize just how pervasive SNL is in modern culture.
Did they replay any of the sketches with Elon Musk as Wario? They didn't do that? No. Interesting.
They aired an entire segment was the sketches that did not age well. And like and I mean, going all the way in on it too, like the sketch with Lindsay Lohan, which was a coming of age sketch for me, but like they labeled it and they're like what did they say? It was like child sexual harassment. Like, that's what this sketch is, right? And they were just
Elon's is an interesting one because I feel like that's not alone. Like, I'm a you know me, I'm a Star Trek fan, and there's definitely a name drop in the middle of like the first season of Discovery where they list Elon Musk along with like discoverers and inventors. Like, there's a line that goes like, "Do you want to be remembered along the likes of visionaries like the Wright brothers, Elon Musk, Zephram Cochrane, who is like in Star Trek, he invents the warp drive." Like, Elon Musk is being like labeled like that, and every time someone posts that screenshot from Discovery season 1, it just ages worse and worse and worse. And I feel like there's a lot of that in the canon of Elon Musk, because he had so many celebrity spottings all over the place, and now people are like trying to trade in their cyber trucks because they're like, you're a fucking fascist for driving this.
So I didn't watch any of the SNL thing was like a 2-night thing, right? It was something Friday night and then something Sunday.
I didn't entirely understand how many days it was.
Okay,
like
yeah.
it was hard to consume
Was it
all
supposed?
of it.
I thought it was supposed to go on for the entire year or something.
I don't know. Someone I didn't watch any of it, but someone posted the Steve Martin monologue, and I think one of my favorite lines from it was like, "We've had 958 hosts of this show, and only 2 of them had turned out to be murderers."
Yeah, that was John Mulaney, right, when he was up there.
Oh, you're right. That was when Mulaney came up and said that.
Yeah.
So as someone who didn't watch that and just genuinely does not watch that, how much did they show of Norm Macdonald?
They definitely highlight and I didn't consume the entire thing, but there were a lot of mentions to Norm. I know Sandler did his Sandler thing where he writes a song and does a good job of chronicling everything, and got to a really sad part that made me want to cry when he mentions Chris Farley and Norm and how many years they were there. And
no, I love Norm Macdonald, but I also understand that some people even some people were going back as much as this weekend to one of his sketches and still finding issues of why he was problematic or something because of it's his style of comedy. It's like you always hear so many comedians these days bitch and moan about how they're they can't do this joke, they can't do that joke. Well, Norm did those jokes.
Right.
He was doing 9/11 jokes like the Academy Awards a year or two after.
And that's why he lost the job at Saturday Night Live, is because he refused to stop making jokes about OJ. And the producer at Saturday Night Live was friends with OJ and said, "Hey, you need to stop doing that." And Norm's like, "No, I'm going to keep doing it." I think they actually played, if I'm remembering correctly last night, I think they played his monologue for when he came back.
Yeah.
His whole monologue where he's like, "I used to work here, and they said I wasn't funny enough, so they fired me, and now I'm hosting the show." He's like, "So what that actually means is the show sucks now."
Yeah. Some of Norm's stuff is ageless and will never have someone that
it's just tough stuff again. But that's the role of him, and there's a lot of people it just shows you all those. If you find a comedian out there who complains about what they can't do, it's you can do it. You can be like Norm. He did it. Why can't you?
Okay, so chat saying there was a concert on Friday.
There was a concert with Sandberg was singing "Dick in a Box" with Lady Gaga. And then Parnell came out and they did Lazy Sunday.
I saw a little.
Oh God!
And then did they intermix some "They Not Like Us" in it or something?
Yeah, just so Parnell could scream "mustard," but then
that's right.
But then they kept the beat and finished Lazy Sunday on that beat, which was fun.
I was about to say what's happened to Chris Parnell? I haven't seen him in a long time, and then I realized he was on Archer for a decade and a half.
Oh gosh, yeah. But you're not seeing him,
right?
You're just hearing him, right?
And I feel like he's done a lot of voice acting stuff, so I guess that's why I haven't seen him.
Nirvana with Post Malone. Moldy Cornbread. I think we do have to brace ourselves to the fact that I don't know if you guys have kind of noticed this enough, but someone brought this up to me the other week. It's feeling more and more like they're going to try a comeback with Nirvana.
I don't hold Nirvana in as high as regard as most people, so
neither do I.
Wouldn't care.
But I think he was last year. Blink.
I like Linkin Park, and I don't care that they have
a
new lead singer. I know she's got skeletons in the closet and that whole thing, but I'm not getting whatever. That.
But I think the thing was that last year, it wasn't Linkin Park that was the big example. It was Blink 182.
Oh right.
Because they put everything together and they were selling like hotcakes. They were selling places out.
It's the new movie reboot is just rebooting bands from the 90s that have one member that's dead.
Is someone dead from Blink 182?
No, what's Travis Barker?
Something happened to Travis Barker's Barker. Probably some drug issue or something.
I thought he got in an accident.
Not getting in trouble here. Yeah. I think he may have had a health scare.
I
think he did.
Maybe. I don't know. But
last I saw thought of Travis Barker, he was hawking. Oh, it was the crash. Yeah. Last I saw Travis Barker, it was a promotion for Liquid Death where he was hawking. It was a bottle. You get a can of Liquid Death and a Travis Barker douche.
Mm.
Mm.
That's marketing.
Yeah.
Get Maz with some news, huh? Nolan
So
Bianchi.
so not to draw viewers away from us, but Dan Miller did talk to both coordinators, and that's airing tonight on Fox Detroit. I'm assuming if Nolan's tweeting about it now, it's probably airing right now.
The works.
But yeah, just record it. Just like flip over really quick, hit the record button, flip right back.
Just turn on your VHS, get a blank tape, put it in.
Get your DVR going, get the TiVo going.
Record and play at the same time.
But yeah, according to Maz, via Nolan Bianchi, via the Dan Miller interview of John Morton, Morton says he will be calling plays this year, which isn't a surprise. I think some people were speculating that maybe Dan would do it, but given how much of a delegator is, given how much he does on a game day outside of play calling, I never suspected that he would call plays.
We can talk about this on the podcast.
We could, but I think we're gonna have enough. Derek Barnes,
Yeah.
Levi Onwuzurike, Fatu Melifanu, Marcus Davenport
/ Zadarius Smith
/
/ Giles Merritt.
I see that your Kilroy guy is back once again.
What's that
Who?
mean?
It's the graffiti you got. Isn't that the Kilroy graffiti?
Oh, me? This?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, like that's the famous that's a very famous wasn't it 60s graffiti? Like I don't know,
Oh.
yeah, no, it doesn't look like Kilroy at all. Never mind. It was like the Kilroy, but like it's the same idea. It's like a man, it's like a face looking over a wall with Kilroy was here. It's
Oh,
like
okay.
a very famous piece of graffiti.
very home improvement adjacent.
Yeah. It's a Wikipedia entry. Don't look at me like I'm crazy.
Is that a Wilson reference to Home Improvement?
Yeah, he's just over the.
If he can, yeah. I think I've told the story before, but way back in like the Scholastic magazine, that they would give to like elementary school to buy books, there was like a tell-all of Home Improvement. I'm like, and like the big selling point was like, you get to see Wilson. I'm like, oh my God, I have to have this.
That's right. World War II, not Vietnam. I was thinking wrong decade. CA layered. Thank you.
I gotta get the drop on Wilson.
I gotta see what he looks like.
That's funny.
So I'm in a bit of a bind. Part of this is me like needing to and I'm sorry if this might hit a little close to home or people like getting mad about me of present stuff, but like there's something to, hey, I've been really wanting a vacation. I'm going to try to get my passport in order and go to like Italy or something, versus I pop on the news today and there is a plane upside down in Toronto.
Do you really think plane travel is any less safe right now?
I used to travel quite a bit by air. I still do. And yes, absolutely 100% yes, it is not as safe. Like air traffic controllers, like there's hundreds that just got fired.
In Toronto?
Well, it's coming in. Yeah, everyone survives, sure, but I'm not taking my chances on that. But also like I yes, it is not as safe as it used to be. Yes. That's correct.
Have you guys ever heard of skip lagging?
What is that?
I think you're making that up.
I'm not. It's illegal. You can't do it.
Okay, great.
But
I like where this conversation is going.
Well, so you should
Is this
do
like
it,
raw
but
dogging a flight?
if you don't get caught, well, so oftentimes it's cheaper to like fly to like buy a ticket to somewhere that has a layover somewhere, but you just get off the layover spot and you don't get on your connecting flight.
And then like what? Just cancel and get refunded the connection part of the
No,
flight? Or?
no, but you're just paying a cheaper price because
okay.
there's a flight that's cheaper if you're buying it that has a stop to the place you want to go rather than like buying a direct flight to that spot.
Okay. two things. One, I'm surprised that would be cheaper because you're paying for 2 flights instead of 1.
Well, not only that, I would assume you're going to be paying per, like, most of their calculations would be by air mileage.
Right.
So, like, you're still cutting off, like, some of the air mileage and still saving. And that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Like, it'd be, like, if you're... Let me give you an example, because there's like a website. Like,
I'm also surprised it's illegal. Like, I'm just like, oh, what if you just decide, you know what, I'm happy with where I'm at. I don't want to go.
What if you passed out in the airport bar while waiting for the connection?
I think
if you miss the connection, that's not illegal. If you purposely say, I'm just not gonna go.
That's what I'm saying. It violates the terms. It violates the terms of the agreement for the plane ticket that you're buying. Like, that's part of the fine print is that, like, you can't do that. Yeah.
But what if it's like, all right, I needed the connection. Now I'm late for this. Screw you guys. Cancel the rest of my flight because I'm going to take a car or something.
Right. You have like a reason. Yeah, that happens all the time.
But I'm saying lie about the reason.
Yeah.
That's fraud. But, and as P-Tray says, like, yeah, don't check a bag. Obviously, don't check a bag because it's going to end up in the destination.
Sure.
It's not how baggage works. But yeah, like there are websites, and I was watching essentially a guy that was talking about skip lagging as a thing, and like saying like, don't do these things that lead to you getting caught. Like, don't do it more than 3 times in a year. Don't.
3 times in a year? I barely travel that much.
Right, but they're saying like don't use the same credit card every time you do it, or this, that, or the other thing to try to not get any red flags show up or anything that Jeremy keeps on missing his connecting flights.
Listen, I renewed my TSA pre-check today, and now we're talking about illegal things on the airline. I'm like, they're gonna reject my renewal.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is like you can look up the flights, like I said, on like websites that do like the skip lagging, like searching for you. And the guy was like, but make sure you don't book your flight from that site. It's like, yeah, no, duh. Like,
hold on. What platform did you get this? Did you see this on? Because I have a theory, but go ahead.
What's your theory? Before I tell you my place I saw it.
Because I think this is potable to another area where people have been getting advice from people that they probably shouldn't be getting advice. Because I think it's Instagram, but also on TikTok, there's definitely been people who have been getting a lot of, I'm not going to call it, well, not strictly financial advice, but there's definitely some people who are like, I discovered this one weird trick to help you, like, while flipping a home to save you money. And it's like, that's clearly this is clearly a securities violation that you are asking people to, that you're telling people to do, to commit securities fraud.
Or it's like Hawk Tua. Getting caught up in a pump and dump scheme.
Everyone knows that's what crypto is, though. Like that's different. Like if you're still in crypto in the year of our Lord 2024, you're getting, and it's a meme coin. Every meme coin since its inception has been a pump and dump,
including Brandon Lee Gouton's.
Can someone describe the difference to me in Bitcoin and meme coin?
Meme coins are just they're basically the penny stocks of cryptocurrency.
Great.
They're like, you've never heard of them.
I saw
they come out very quickly.
Messed around last week. Someone created a jail Portnoy meme coin, and he caught wind of it, and he decided to buy some as a joke, and it suddenly spiked, and I don't know, all that stuff grosses me out. I hate it. It's definitely
get a job.
Like as if
job?
Do something. Figure out a skill.
It just feels like none of this is real. And I understand that's what the stock market is on a very basic level. And so it's not like it's anything new.
This is more unreal. Like, no. Sports gambling is like the stock market. The crypto thing is because so many people are in the know, it makes pump and dumps very easy.
Did you see Maz's explanation of skip lagging though? I think
no.
They summed it up pretty well.
Yeah.
Saying flying from Atlanta to Lansing via DTW just to get off at DTW, airlines may price the Lansing flight cheaper than the direct DTW flight because they want to fill the DTW to Lansing flight.
Yeah. I think it'd be mostly if you're trying to to that, like get to a regional.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get off at the major hub.
Yeah, I saw it on TikTok.
Okay.
Chris, so
That's what I thought. Okay. Because I've definitely seen a lot of those. Like, again, it's always some very, very clean looking woman who like is like starting to talk her way through something where it's just clearly like, this is like tenant fraud,
yeah.
a zoning violation, and a securities fraud all wrapped up in one. And you're just acting like this is just, you found this weird cheat. This is a real quick trick to help you, make 10 times your investment. Like, yeah. And get 10 times your life spent away in prison.
Hey, speaking of meme coin, just pulling up my tweet deck, my most recent DM. Hello, boss. I have a meme coin project. I need to conduct some promotion on Twitter.
I got a really weird. I'm sorry to hijack Jeremy's thing here, but it might be on my laptop. I've noticed a lot of the spam I'm getting on X when I open it up is getting really weird. I had one today where someone gave me like a Bitcoin wallet, a supposed Bitcoin wallet address, a website link, a login password, and was like listings like, here's how much money's in this wallet. But the preceding message that comes with it is like, I've moved on to a new part in my life. I don't want you to bother me anymore. Like, all I ask is that you use this money to help take care of our baby boy.
Who's our baby boy? Is it Patrick Holmes?
No, it's
our
I don't
large
know.
adult son.
You don't know. Like, I'm like, are scammers okay? Like, this is such a weird. Who the fuck would fall for this?
So did you click? You clicked the link, right?
No,
I mean, they gave you the login and password.
And when it asked you after you logged in to change your password to something that you use more regularly, so that they would then have that information.
Or it's like when I want to drain the wallet. Like, the thing is like, I do know there are certain like codes you can write to drain someone else's wallet by clicking on a certain link or looking at a certain like. That was a thing during, I think, who was it among NFTs? There was definitely a rapper who got really into NFTs. It made the Dan Olson video where it's like, if he clicked on a link of a fraudulent like NFT that was dropped in his wallet, it would send him to a website that would then drain all of the cryptocurrency out of his crypto wallet.
Learn a skill, please.
Get a job.
So I don't know if
our president, go home and get a job.
I don't know if either of you read the Jonathan Taylor stuff. Is that right? Is that his name, Jonathan Taylor?
Yeah, Taylor, and is this the Richie Incognito thing?
Yeah. But like, so part of like, I think his motivation to tell that story is to like talk about how he's moved on from life, and like part of it was like, yeah, I'm really into cryptocurrency. And I'm like, oh,
Jesus Christ.
Like if that's how you're turning the page on your life, I'm a little concerned for you.
Get a job.
But
Eric Ebron, he was super into NFTs and crypto, isn't he?
He was. I don't know if you guys want to talk about the Martin stuff. It's interesting to me.
I didn't read it. I saw the headline and I was like, oh yeah, I remember that happened. And then I think not too long after that, I saw Richie Incognito's tweet where he's like, this is all BS and made up, and he was gonna quit football anyways, so this was a way for him to get money. And
yeah,
I was like, I don't know if I want to go back into this story, but go ahead.
I didn't like the story when it came out to begin with, because like a lot of people took Incognito's side.
Yes, and now even more are, which is the wrong. Like, here's the thing: if you are doing an exoneration, a victory exoneration lap after an article on ESPN, like
shit that happened 10 years ago.
Hold on. They transcribed a voicemail that was left to Jonathan Martin where he calls him the N-word multiple times, talks about beating his wife, and talks about killing him. If that's your exoneration, if you're doing victory laps on that article, you are a terrible person.
You might have CTE.
Like, and that's the thing. Like, people are just reading headlines because that's what people do now, and they read that Jonathan Martin says it never happened. I was never bullied. And they don't read the actual article and what he actually said and what he actually meant. And it just becomes this debate whether that kind of talk is okay in an NFL locker room. That is what is the basis of this argument. And I think there is a little bit of an argument to be made that like that's how it used to be. But it's not cool anymore.
I think so. I didn't actually see the full transcription, but what I did see was, and this shows you where the story is at, because when I see Mike Florio making a really good point about that to exactly what Jeremy's talking about, that this isn't the full story. I think it was a blog post Florio wrote called a defamation lawsuit from Richie Incognito would likely go nowhere.
Right.
We're at the point where Mike Florio is smart, is like more hep to this story than 90% of the people out there reacting to it.
Gosh, what a weekend for Vikings fans on Twitter with like good takes.
I saw your tweet. I mean, you sent it to me, but I saw your tweet.
Well, I also don't know if you actually ever saw the tweet because you had them blocked.
I do.
But I mean, it also doesn't. Yeah, as Moldy says, like this doesn't exactly erase all the other ways Incognito was an insufferable jackass to everyone around
it erases nothing to me.
Yeah,
because they did an extensive report. They had lawyers come in, and like, if you read the article, nothing says that he lied at the time. That all he's saying is like, I didn't feel like I was getting bullied, but all of the things that happened that were reported that happened. And I think Martin's kind of idea is that I don't want to play the victim, right? Like I don't want to act like I was the victim there. Like I'm the strong dude. I'm like whatever. But all those things they did happen. He said those things. And I mean, the one part of the story that I had completely forgotten is there was a part that, like, years later, like 2018, I think, Martin posted a picture of a gun and said, "This is what happens when you get bullied." And, like, there was a chaotic moment where everyone thought he was going to commit suicide or he was going to go after Richie Cognito. Like, it's terrifying. And, like, to say, like, I think what Martin is just trying to do is move past that era in his life. I don't think nothing happened. I know nothing happened. There's proof that stuff happened. And people are just reading headlines and saying, "Oh, Martin lied about his time there." It's like, no, that's not what happened. They fired coaches after that. They fired their offensive line coach. You're telling me they did that based on like one person's testimony? No, that's not how the NFL works. It's wild.
Get a job.
Speaking of how the NFL works, this reminds me back to, I think it was Dragonfly Jones on Twitter after the Super Bowl and the halftime show, where everybody's like, "I can't believe Kendrick actually said Drake's name." And he was like, "I can't believe that people thought that the NFL for a second was going to be scared about like
a Drake lawsuit."
Drake lawsuits." And Dragonfly Jones is like, "The NFL has a kind of money that can make like science go away. Like they can make science lawyers go away. Like you think they're worried about Drake?"
I'm just curious how that lawsuit would play out, because it would immediately hit, "Hey, you want to do discovery?" It's like Drake would just, "Let's settle on something low, please."
But I think was Incognito, was this while they were on what team were they on?
Dolphins.
Yeah. Okay, and then didn't Incognito end up on the Raiders with Gruden?
I believe so.
Is this? I'm trying to remember this if I'm remembering it correctly. But anyways, I think
yes.
Okay, so this just kind of leads me into like, okay, I'm also seeing the soft launch of John Gruden happen on Barstool Sports.
Yep.
Like it's been happening for like 6 months now.
Yeah.
This is always why I'm fascinated. This is always why I am fascinated on rehabilitation of certain people and what you need for people to just let things fly. And I kind of got that sense immediately with Gruden when basically the first video he put out when everyone was memeing off of it. It's kind of in the same vein how everyone has just completely forgotten that Florida State paid out $1 million to an accuser of Jameis Winston just because he cuts a fucking good promo.
I mean, Rick Pitino is one of the top college basketball coaches in the country right now.
And remains, yes.
Hey, cancel culture is real.
I just want to know, like, do you guys think within the next 3 years John Gruden has another job in the NFL?
Did he get interviewed? He got interviewed. There was talk about him. Did he ever get an interview this cycle?
I don't think. I feel like I would have remembered if it would have actually happened because I would have freaked out about it.
I guess that's the thing is like, what would the league even be able to do if he came back? Like,
okay, well, I guess the answer to that question is looking at the Patriots head coaching search. And the way that they treated the Rooney Rule. Do you think they really care?
No.
Or would it be good for business if the guy on Barstool Sports, who has this huge meme following now, is soft launching his way back into NFL coaching?
He's 61.
Well, it wouldn't be the first. It wouldn't be the last time we've gotten once again. Coach trying to split time between a media job and a head coaching job.
Why isn't Doug every Doug Gottlieb headline I see? I'm expecting it to say he's been fired, but it just has his coaching record, which continues to only have 2 wins.
3 wins. He got his 3rd last night.
Really?
Yes, beat Wright State by double digits. He got his 3rd win. And LeBron James was like clapping at his ass.
On the night where there was nothing to watch on television. No sports to be seen. Doug Gottlieb win. Still not entirely visible.
It's Horizon League, man. What are you going to do?
Hey, easy. Go Grizz.
Go Grizz. Did they lose to Mercy?
I don't know.
Fake fan.
Easy.
All right. If we're going to get you out by 7:30, we should get going here in the second segment.
Oh, okay. No, they beat Mercy. They beat Mercy by 10 points. Okay. Go Grizz. Still under 500.
Can't wait for March, baby.
You mean when college basketball starts?
How dare you?
I watched a little Michigan beating Ohio State on yesterday.
Oh yeah, big Michigan guy now, huh?
That's how sports starved I am. I'm watching.
I was going to say, speaking of your other loyalty Ryans. Speaking of your other loyalty Ryans, I don't know. Like every time I look up, I just get like angst and consternation from the Sparties in my life. But
I gotta send you Valeni's rant.
Oh God!
About the upgrades that they're making to Michigan. He buried Michigan State hard.
There was a Michigan State Twitter account, and I think it's known for like really homer bad takes, and it was like because Ohio State was favored in that basketball game, and and they tweeted something out before the game was like, oh, a ranked team is not favored on the road in a college basketball game. You got to hammer the favorite in this one. And it's just like, it got quote tweeted a bajillion times after the game.
Right.
It was that. Maz has it. It was daily_MSU. That was 100% what it was.
And you leave that tweet up because all press is good press.
Right.
In this day and age. Let it get shared.
Yeah. Well, and then like, they were also like, at least I'm not deleting my tweet. I'm standing I have the balls enough to stand.
I'm standing on business.
That's literally a drill tweet. That's literally I will not deleting my post is like burning down Abraham Lincoln's cabin.
Right. And then everyone's like, if you really stood on that statement, why don't you put your name on that tweet? Why don't you not daily_MSO tell us who you are? I was like, it's kind of got a point. Anyways.
I would say I'm Frankie Muniz, and I'm driving in the Daytona 500 truck driver series.
There you go.
I'm just a huge Michigan State troll.
Look at you making it full circle so we can get back to the show.
That's right.
Just like a lap at Daytona.
Full circle.
As long as it doesn't get rained out.
Baseball.
Now
Absol.
Chad is just throwing drill tweets in the comments, which I'm all for.
Oh yeah.
All right, I'm ready when you guys are.
I'm sorry. I just saw RG's tweet where they said Cade 5 minutes shaking my head. I'm assuming that's how much he played in the All-Star game. And then, hey, Adam Silver, get ready to learn Chinese, buddy.
That was like the big thing of Draymond. It's like, what are we doing taking guys out after like 40 points or whatever?
I watched a time-lapse video of the All-Star game and somebody talking over it and saying, like, this is literally what happened in the game. They were stopping the game for Kevin Hart to do comedy. Like they would bring Shaq and Kenny and
Mr. Beast.
Everybody on the floor to
that was
dress them up, and like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's on the court, like get off the court, like let's play basketball.
Yeah. Like as I was driving home, suddenly I open up X and the first thing I see is like Mr. Beast, stay tuned. Middle of the All-Star game, we have a challenge coming. I'm like, thank you. I didn't want to watch this, but now I really don't want to watch this.
It might be worse than the NFL one. And Jeremy watched all the NFL one.
Yeah, it's good.
It's just so desperate. It's so desperate for no fucking reason. And it's not done anything. It just made people shit on it even harder. That league is, I'm not going to say they're in trouble because they have a pretty well ironclad contract and they've got the money for it. But I mean, man, it's not great.
Everyone's just going to copy the 4 countries thing now. Because that's actually good.
It's actually
what
good.
4 countries would even it be for basketball?
So I was thinking about that last night, and I think you would want to do North America, Canada, because Canada has a pretty good squad these days.
I think the problem is they've done USA versus international before, and it just never works.
But I think you go US, Canada,
maybe
and then
Europe, Europe together.
I was gonna say like figure out a way to divide Europe.
Eastern Europe versus Western Europe.
Is there a way that we can make sure that Jokic and Doncic are on different teams? Is really my big thing.
No, because they're both like those would both be Eastern Europe, right? Like Luka's from Serbia, and then
Jokic is Serbian. Jokic is Serbian.
Doncic is Slovenian. So I mean, that would be like Central versus East, if you can even tease it that way. But like that's all Eastern Europe, yeah. Wemby would be on a Western Europe team.
Yeah, I think while I love what the NHL is doing with the 4 nations thing, if I was a fan of a player who is really important to the NHL team that I root for, if that player were to get injured in a all for fun exhibition, non-sanctioned international tournament that means nothing really.
Nothing yet, but I mean, it's the first
I
year, like it, and it's getting a lot of pub and positive public. I think it might matter. Like
it needs to get sanctioned.
I no longer care if guys get hurt doing these things. They should do them because they are professionals. It means we are expecting them to go out each night and play. And I think that
it could cost them money.
I understand that, but I'm saying that you want to know why the NBA is suffering. It is because the maximalism on the playoffs and winning a championship over any other aspect of their product is what is ultimately hurting the NBA the most. Is that you have teams who have decided that the regular season doesn't fucking matter. The kids coming out to watch their favorite star on a given night doesn't fucking matter. None of that matters. Only just the ship. And I understand why, but I also say that's still fucking hurting you.
Okay, but they're not focusing on the sport of basketball, which was on center stage at All-Star Weekend. They were focusing on people getting up there and dancing and singing and telling jokes and doing comedy bits when SNL 50 was going on. Like you are a basketball product. Showcase your basketball players.
Yes. No,
like,
absolutely. I
put
agree
your
with you on that.
sport first and foremost.
Yes.
Like that's why Adam Silver, every time he opens his mouth and he's like, well, we have the biggest following on social media, means nothing. It means nothing. It means jack all. So like, however, what the NHL is doing. Like, this is grueling. It's a
Yeah.
round robin tournament to
Yeah.
then now there's going to be a final game. So if you're going to the finals, you're playing 4 games
Mhm.
in a week stretch, and then guess what? A few days later, you're back with your
That's
NHL
hockey.
team.
I would appreciate the Four Nations a little bit more if it wasn't just like, yeah, we're going to keep Russia out of this.
Well, the Russian team would annihilate every team that's in that.
I know.
Four
Once again,
Nations
Canadians.
tournament right
Once
now.
again, Canadians not wanting to be shown up by Russians.
I feel like we're gonna get tagged on Twitch.
For what?
I'm scared that we're talking about Russia and Canada too much right now.
We've
Well,
hit,
let's
we've
get back
hit
to it
every
then.
like
Let's get
hot,
back-
but we've really like danced around a lot of hot topics right now.
Yeah, I know.
What
I'm
are you
ready to
gonna
talk
do,
Lions
huh?
free agency
Oh, we have to do that. Okay, let's do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do that.
because now we only have 23 minutes until it's 7:30.
You know what? 7:40. It's not going to be the end of my marriage.
Not this time.
You left your wife?
More drill tweets.
No, but that was your fucking meme from way back. It's not, and was always because it was always supposed to be, the old meme was my wife left me, and you would always get on this podcast and said I left my wife.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
All right.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions! How about that?
Pride to Detroit PODcast as we continue to break down more of Lions free agency, a look ahead to all the big names the Lions have to consider internally before anything else. And now here comes a really tough one for you guys as we look at the linebacker core. And I know we talked about him a little bit on a previous podcast, Jeremy. Derek Barnes.
Yeah.
Probably an incredibly interesting thing here. The Lions need a Sam linebacker, no matter what. And I, you've got Kelvin Shepard at the helm on the defense now. You would assume kind of a linebacker focus in this regard. So I guess the question for the Lions is, and I think we've even talked about Malcolm Rodriguez, that I don't, think he fully slots. I'm curious where he is with that, if he was going to take that role or where else he would be. We've talked about him as depth, but what do Lions really do with Derek Barnes? Are you resigning him? Are you letting him walk? Do you even have other internal options?
It's hard because it feels like a very unique role. And no, I don't think they have any other options on their roster. I think they tried once they lost Derek Barnes, and they couldn't really find anyone to hold down that role like Derek Barnes could. So I think from the Lions' point of view, yeah, there's going to be a lot of desire to bring someone like that back, especially when you have someone like Kelvin Shepard, who saw this guy go from someone who became an afterthought once they drafted more and more guys at that position, keep his head above water, have the kind of grit and determination that they want here, and carve out a role. Like they didn't really value the Sam linebacker role in previous years like they did last year because they have Derek Barnes, because they were looking for a way to get him on the field because he was improving as much as he was, but they weren't going to take Jack Campbell off the field. They weren't going to take Alex Anzalone off the field. And so from the Lions' point of view, I think, yeah, there's going to be a lot of desire to bring him back. I kind of like to think about this from his point of view, though, from Derek Barnes' point of view, because the Sam linebacker role is not a full-time position. He's not a starting linebacker anymore. This is probably one of his bigger opportunities to cash in. Granted, he's coming off a pretty serious injury, but like, is there going to be some motivation for him to play more of a standard linebacker position? Because as much as the Lions like him as a Sam linebacker role, I don't think he has much value elsewhere as a Sam linebacker. And he proved like he can play off-ball linebacker in 2023, right? Like he held off Jack Campbell for a very long time in that season because he was such good as an off-ball linebacker. And so maybe he thinks in his head, there's a chance for me to score somewhere else and like have a legitimate full-time off-ball linebacker role. But at the same time, is there going to be another team that values him as much as the Lions? The answer is probably no.
Yeah, and I think you dig into some of the numbers too. I think what was happening, to borrow Jeremy's least favorite idea of momentum, you had the way that Derek Barnes finished 2023 and the way that 2024 started and looked like it was trending in the direction where this is going to be the breakout year. And we just posted that article today for our POD awards about the Lions breakout player of the year. It could have very well been Derek Barnes had he played the entire season, right? But it didn't happen. Mm-hmm. You look at 2023, 19 total pressures. In 2022, 6 total pressures. Like the numbers aren't quite there. There isn't the proof of all this production. He had a sack in 2023. He had a sack in 2022. He was finally putting it all together, and then he couldn't show it, right? And what is that worth? And I do think I think this is one of the more interesting dynamics to this offseason, Chris, is what to do with Derek Barnes, because does the position still exist? Does another team look at Derek Barnes and say, well, you know what? We're willing to pay a little bit of a premium for him. Would that turn the Lions into a team that says, okay, we'll try to find maybe a guy at the end of the first round or even, early on day 2 to fill that role, who's young and cost controlled?
And this is where I get to talk about one of my favorite prospects in this upcoming draft, which is Jahad Campbell. Add another Jay Campbell to the pile. But if you're talking about someone you would want on a day 1, early day 2, and maybe it requires a bit of a trade up, but that's absolutely I would see as someone. We know Brad Holmes likes his Alabama Crimson Tide players too, don't we, Ryan?
Oh yeah, certified.
Yeah. So that's really the only option I have here. I'd have to dive deeper. I'm still working on my deeper dives into NFL draft stuff. We got the combine coming up here soon, which we'll talk about on next week's episode as well. But I'm kind of with you. There's not a terrible amount of options, but at the same time, I don't know if the Lions can really justify the expenditure that it would take for someone like Derek Barnes at the same time. It feels like this is somewhere where it's you're just going to have to throw up your hands and get a developmental project or a spend in the draft.
I want to highlight the point that Jeremy brought up, though, as far as Derek Barnes specifically may be more valuable to the Lions than any other team, because 2023 tied with Alex Anzalone for the most run stops on the team. A really, really good run defender, right? And it seemed like he was starting to put together the stuff to have a pass rush plan. But that was everything, Jeremy, right? Derek had to really develop into that player because he was the edge rusher who turned into a linebacker and who was going back and forth between positions. And it was one of those Brad Holmes, wait till a few years down the road and this guy finally puts it all together.
Yeah. And I remember specifically in 2023 when early in the season they tried him out at that Sam linebacker role and he wasn't ready for it, but he was excited about it. I remember specifically asking him, hey, you're kind of returning to your pass rushing roots in Purdue. What was the conversation like when that was brought up? He's like, oh man, I told my fiance at the time, I get to rush the passer again. This is great. And so it's something that, again, it's something that he might be interested in, but the proof is still not there yet that he's done it. And so maybe that means the contract is going to be lower than I think Eric has said it multiple times on the midweek, the injury could not have come at a worse time for him. And it's probably going to plummet his value a little bit because he never got to show the opportunity that he has that within his game. But I think there's one other factor in this that I think could play a major role. And that's, they have a new defensive line coach. And I know he's an edge linebacker, but that gets some work in the defensive line coaching room. And Casey Rogers is there now. I think it's fair to wonder if they're going to place things the exact same. If they're going to have a Sam linebacker role, if they're going to value a different kind of player and that edge role. We don't know any of those things yet, and we probably won't for quite some time. Maybe how they treat Derek Barnes will give us a clue. And speaking of Casey Rogers, he's the key to my one potential free agent replacement. And it's not it's not a 1-to-1 skill set match, but comes from Tampa, Levante David. He's a free agent. Coming off career high 30 pressures.
Is this Bobby Wagner part due for Lions fans?
Maybe.
Bobby Wagner worked out though for Washington.
Yeah,
exactly.
It did.
Yeah.
Levi Onwuzurike.
Now we're getting to the hard ones now. Like,
Yeah.
the first segment was all like, oh yeah, just resign him. Just
resign him. Just resign him. Just pay him. Pay him whatever they want.
I don't know. Like Levi, to me, the toughest thing with Levi is I have no idea what he's asking for because.
But yes, these two contracts, I have no idea what they
Right.
look like.
Right.
Yeah.
Because listen, and I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus here. I think this just speaks to how unknown the situation is. Justin Rogers projected his contract at 3 years, $45 million.
Woo.
If that's the case, let's try to get a third round compensatory pick out of that. Like, no, I'm not paying that for Levi Onwuzurike.
Wish you the best in all your future endeavors, Levi.
PFF's numbers wildly different. 2 years, $16.5 million. So just over $8 million a year compared to $15 million a year. That's what we're talking about in terms of like, I don't know where this one lands. And I tend to think it's going to be closer to the PFF estimate, but I don't know.
I
You
think this
see
is
the way
somewhere
these
where it's
defensive tackle market was last year. It was wild.
Yeah, this feels like one where you're just going to have to let him test the open market and then see what he comes back with a price
Yeah.
that is kind of more amenable to you at the end of the day. But like, does that? I mean, as far as the talent for it too, like, does it even fit for the? I mean, is it there for the Lions? Is this too much of a project that you've been questioning for too long? This is what makes Levi Onwuzurike so damn hard to figure out.
I think once you start to take the draft into the calculus when it comes to the defensive interior position, I much rather prefer investing in youth at that position rather than pairing a potentially big contract with a massive contract like Aleem McNeil's. You know, and that's no real knock on Levi, but I'm just saying I think a team might pay more closer to the Justin Rogers premium that Jeremy brings up because there are pressures and there are some sack numbers where with Derek Barnes, it's like, do you want a really good run defender who can maybe pass rush the passer a little bit? We just don't quite know if he can because those numbers aren't there.
Right.
There's definitely a chance to go find someone who's a little more dedicated to a pass rusher role, especially for interior pressure.
But it's going to cost you.
Sure.
It's going to cost you a ton because that is what everyone is looking for because of Chris Jones in 2023, because of everything the Eagles did this year. Like, interior pass rush is going to come pricey. And so the question is, do you take Levi back and say, he's not going to be a top market guy, but we drafted him for a reason. If there's a guy who's just been through a lot that maybe just a little bit of stability could help him, it's Levi. It's not only the injuries, it's the fact that they have just been rotating through defensive line coaches every single year, and he's getting a new one this year if he stays. So it's tough because I think getting interior pressure is important, but you're going to have to pay for it. You're either going to have to pay for it with a first-round draft pick or a trade up into the second and get one, or you're going to have to pay $20-ish million for a proven guy who can do it. Do you pay half of that for a guy that knows your system, that he came on in the end of last year, right? He had 17 pressures in the final 4 games, including a 9-pressure game.
I as far as numbers go, do you know that he had the same pass rush win rate as Vita Vea last year?
That's wild.
He was tied for 18th next to, I don't know, another guy named Dexter Lawrence. You ever heard of him? He was ahead of Jalen Carter in pass rush win rate. So like the amount of pressures he's generating, averaged out to his snaps. But he also finished with tied for the 15th most pressures in the NFL among interior defensive linemen.
Yeah. He just, by the way, he just crossed Aiden Hutchinson with the last game of the season.
Yeah. But 15th out of 195 qualifying.
Yeah.
Interior defenders. I'm actually seeing here at 195 was Broderick Martin.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't see his name on the list.
But that matters too, though. Like,
Yeah.
where do we see some of these guys fitting in? I know that Broderick and Levi's skill sets are widely different, but I think that's the other thing too to take into consideration here with Levi is he's playing everywhere.
Yeah.
3, 5, 7. Like he can really get out there and he's versatile. That's why I think it's going to be more like the Justin Rogers projection than the PFF one.
Yeah,
I think they're underestimating it.
You want to move on to the next one?
Yeah.
Ifatu Melifonwu.
This one's easier.
Yeah, I guess a little bit. Like, I know everyone's ready to move on, right? It's the injury thing. It's the
I don't think
availability
everybody. Thing. I think there are some people who are still
he just does
truthers.
Yeah, like the ability he brings.
He's in the live stream. You better watch it.
Yeah.
I say it affectionately.
At the one thing he does very well, it's really hard to argue against that. But I also think this is a question, Ryan, towards what's the defense going to look like with Kelvin Shepherd? Because if your plan is to eventually not be so blitz heavy, is to try to bring pressure with 4, the value of someone like Iffy starts to really, really plateau off.
I think the value of Iffy kind of plateaued with he can do one thing really well, which is rush the passer when there's nobody to block him. And the other thing come on. It's the catchphrase. It's the slogan. It's the greatest ability is what?
Availability.
When you get off IR and you end up on IR again. It felt like only an Ifatu Melifonwu thing that could have happened.
Well, that one was fluky, right? Like he dislocated 100%. A finger while he was in the practice window, right?
Every injury for these Lions feels fluky in some way.
Right. Yeah. That's why I almost want to just like throw out 2024. Like there was some bad juju in the building. When you got a
broken jaw, finger, and tibia all in the same year.
Right.
I'm surprised nobody got hurt playing Guitar Hero.
It's just there's two things that make it a little bit hard for me. I can't let go of how he finished 2023. It wasn't just the pressures, it was the interceptions, it was the disruption. Like he was such an asset to what they needed down the stretch this year, which was like something to keep that defense alive. And they didn't quite get it out of Iffy this year, to say the least. But he did like he provided a little bit of pass rush when he came back. And then like the other fact of it is like, who else is going to pay this guy? Who else is going to pay an Ifatu Melifonwu who has been injured his entire young career? Like, yes, he's young. Yes, he had a small amount of production in 1 year. But who's going to pay that? And I know he can't come to Detroit and pick up a starting job. There is not a starting job available for him. There is a sub-package role for him though. And I think that would be valuable to Detroit to have a sub-package guy, to have a depth guy, right? There's not a lot of depth at that safety position behind your two starters. We can talk about some of those guys, but none of them can do what Iffy can do. And so like, I just look at it and be like, it's almost like a Marcus Davenport re-signing, but only way cheaper than what they paid for Marcus Davenport last year. Like it's a $2 million a year, a 1 year, $2 million deal for Ifatu Melifonwu. I would say yes to that.
Is that I would consider that, if that's the case, I would consider that even more agreeable than like a late round pickup, because then at that point you're just asking for a draft pick from day 3 to do what Ifatu Melifonwu could do.
Just have Sione Vaki play both ways.
Stop it.
Iron Man. Yeah. Screw you, Travis Hunter. We've got the real Iron Man over here.
That's how you steal all the blaze from Travis Hunter and his whole draft stock. No, I agree, Jeremy. If it's cheap, right? Yeah. But it almost feels like I don't want to pay him enough money that I can't get out of it in camp. And I feel like he could get a bigger contract somewhere else with more guarantees than that.
Yeah.
Like that might be the breaking point I have with Melifonwu.
Right. And I think at any time we talk about a free agent Lions defensive back, like Aaron Glenn and the Jets have to be part of the conversation, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But internally, like maybe Lauren Strickland, like it's easy. I was doing a little.
I like Lauren Strickland.
I was doing a little research on Lauren Strickland. One, I forgot completely that he made the 53-man roster out of training camp, and he stayed there for like a month or two before they kicked him to the practice squad, and he signed a futures deal. But like, he was kind of kicking butt in training camp. Like, and you look at some of the preseason numbers. Yes, I know it's preseason. He's playing all over the place. He was playing nickel. He was playing safety. He was playing strong safety, free safety. I don't think he has the pass rushing chops, but maybe that's something that they see in him. Like, he's an athletic dude. Maybe that's something they can build in him in, like they build in Iffy. But that, I mean, we're talking about an undrafted rookie last year and filling Ifeatu Melifonu's role. And granted, filling Melifonu's role means being inactive for 14 weeks out of the year. But
Yeah. The one last thing real quick on it is the versatility amongst the defensive backs. I don't mind if the Lions figure out if they re-sign Carlton Davis, right? That changes the calculus at cornerback, which then also changes where you can move Brian Branch. And would I be upset about Brian Branch on a few snaps playing the iffy role? Absolutely not. So,
yeah.
All right, we mentioned it a little second ago, and this is kind of a twofer. Because there's two names here with a slash, which is always difficult. But Marcus Davenport / Za'Darius Smith. What to do with a situation? We talked a little bit about the Josh Paschal question. I think, was it a podcast ago, 2 podcasts ago? Might have been during a break for scraps. The edge opposite of Aiden Hutchinson remains a big question. It's what fuels a lot of the Myles Garrett talk. I don't want to, or Max Crosby. I don't want to talk about Max Crosby or Myles Garrett if we can help it, because it feels like that's just beaten to death. And I don't think either of them are available. And you can keep saying that this makes us weak in people talking about it. But guess what? If they ain't selling, you can't buy. And they ain't selling Myles Garrett, and they ain't selling Max Crosby. That's the damn reality of it. If it changes, keep your ears open. But for right now, they ain't selling. I like the idea of keeping Za'Darius Smith on his current contract. As for Davenport, I'm much more up in the air. I don't really have terribly an opinion on it too much. And this is just, but it's just, again, the issue, Ryan, of trying to figure out that edge pressure. It just goes 3 men deep on what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, this is where, again, Levi is somebody who needs to be taken into consideration because of that positional versatility I brought up. But the Za'Darius Smith stuff is that contract. I don't know if it's tenable. I don't think that's something that you want to entertain. And, Jeremy, you brought up how renegotiations went in certain places and contracts with Za'Darius Smith in the past. Marcus Davenport felt like hey, Brad Holmes gave it the college try. It would obviously depend on like the term and the money and everything, but again, like felt like a freak injury.
I'm not going to say it was totally into Emmanuel Mosley territory, but it kind of is.
But that's what I mean.
Vibes, right? You're not seeing him.
I think Emmanuel Mosley would be the reason, the way that you could talk me into Brad Holmes saying, yeah, we'll give Marcus Davenport another try at the right price. Re-sign Emmanuel Mosley.
Right.
Like,
yeah, it's the same thinking. And he hung around the facility. Like, he kind of did the same thing that E-Man did, which is like, hey, I'm going to do my rehab here. I'm going to be around. I'm going to be in the building. It matters to me. That sign, I'm sure, I'm not sure, but like if a good agent would be like, hey, if you want to stay in Detroit, if you want to get a new contract, go do that. Hang around the team. Show that you care. Show that you're going to still be, the veteran presence that maybe that edge room certainly needed toward the end of last season.
Hey, I'm friends with Emmanuel Mosley's agent. That's what he did, and he got another contract.
Right. And so, like, yeah, I mean, if you're a highly, bonus and incentive
laden, yeah,
game day active bonuses, fill that, sure. Like a 1 year, $2 million deal. Again, like we're talking, it has to be that low. Like you can't have Marcus Davenport on the roster and him being your plan A at the position. Mm-hmm. And quite honest, I don't think you can do that with Za'Darius Smith either, because while Za'Darius Smith was fine after they traded for him, he also wasn't playing a full-time role by any means. A lot of times he was playing like 20 snaps a game. He was being a pass rush specialist.
Which is who he had become, like in the latter half of his career, yeah.
Right, and maybe in the latter half of the season too, right? Like he's an old dude. He wears down as the season goes. Maybe he can be a little bit more of an impact earlier in the year, but there does have to be a move here. I think an external move at some point. And we're not going to relitigate all the trade stuff because we've made our opinions known by now. And like Chris said, if it becomes more serious talk, then we'll talk about it more seriously. But I do think this is a position that they have to invest in and get more, not just a guy capable of starting, but I think you need depth. You need rotational players, and some of that can come in the draft. Everyone says this is an extremely deep defensive line draft. Great. I'm excited to find out who those players are in the near future. But again, I'm kind of digging into the Casey Rogers well here. First of all, there's Joe Tryon Choyinka, who's coming off his rookie deal. He's a first-round pick. Kind of played so-so in the Bucs for 4 years, and so maybe Casey Rogers knows something like, not that guy. They didn't exercise his fifth-year option. Maybe they're not bringing him back. It was just okay. RGA got ahead of me in the chat. Anthony Nelson is the one that kind of interests me. Also from Tampa. This dude is 6'7" and 271 pounds. You want to talk about someone who might be able to crush the can a little bit. A big boy with long arms, play some run defense, but also like pretty darn athletic. His stats aren't gaudy. It's not like he's been an extreme pass rusher. And I think in terms of like pass rushing moves, just kind of so-so. And you could also probably say, like, since he's been with Casey Rogers before, maybe there's not that much room for development, at least not under Casey Rogers. But new place, we'll see. 33 pressures, 4.5 sacks, playing about 50% of the time last year. So he's kind of one of those rotational guys that, like, John Kaminsky is another guy that's a free agent, a guy that could play that, 2022 John Kaminsky role where it's like he's in there a lot. He's not maybe a starter, but a guy that'll get you some production and play hard.
One name is a veteran that I like. Now, again, injuries, foot injury, a little bit older. I wouldn't mind DeMarcus Lawrence being a Detroit Lion. Like that could be a real easy path to, like, again, not like a future plan, but it could be like refreshing the Zadarius Smith thing. And I mean, in 2023, he was the 8th ranked edge amongst all edge defenders. And I mean, he got injured last year, and like I said, foot injury, so I'm not crazy about it, but Liz Frank, not great. But I don't know, could be worth entertaining.
You're willing to bend the availability rule for him, huh?
I mean, when you're as good as DeMarcus Lawrence, would you get involved in the Khalil Mack sweepstakes, whatever that entails?
I might. It would be. This is hard because I still I feel like I'm getting rose-colored glasses on Khalil Mack, but it's Khalil Mack. Like,
it's great.
That's a name.
He was a
5th.
I know.
34.
He was the 5th ranked edge last year.
I know. Old man strong.
He was the 6th ranked edge the year before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had 17 sacks.
I mean, I'm just saying, even if that keeps dipping and you get maybe I don't know, the 7th ranked edge, that's still sure, gimme.
And I so wildly overlooked he's exactly what they want as a run defender too.
Mm-hmm. That might make a lot of sense.
34, man.
But 34 plus a player you draft at 28 or whatever they're at.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it's very much, I feel like the approach to edge should almost mirror what they did with outside corner last year, or even just cornerback in general.
Or what we want them to do with guard or the line too.
Yeah. Take care of it now and get a contingency plan with the draft.
Build continuity.
Yeah. Right.
Or trade for Giles Merritt. I don't know. Do whatever you want, Brad Holmes.
Right, but it's the thing that we always talk about this time of year is let's fill every plug on the roster that we can in free agency and then do whatever the hell we want during the draft.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brad Holmes doesn't like to enter the draft with many needs.
Yeah. So
especially not when you're drafting as low as Lions will be drafting too.
Right.
This isn't 2 years ago where you're
only going to get 1 or 2 starters.
Yeah.
That's the new normal.
Maybe. I had a really hard.
Unless you do the thing Jeremy hates.
What's that?
Trade up.
I would be shocked if they traded up this year. I really would.
I wouldn't.
No,
an edge
really.
That they really like. Why not? Thanks, Aaron Glenn, for that conditional third. Or that compensatory third.
Okay, yeah, I guess I get it.
Package
I don't know.
that baby up.
All right. I think that's it. Are we good?
I think we're good.
Let's get out of here. We've got a midweek mailbag coming this week. First bite, or do we have a first bite coming on POD Direct?
We're trying.
Trying.
Trying our darndest.
Interview status is trying, which is usually what we can all ask for. Scraps coming later in the week. I hope you guys enjoyed the last one, which I know was a little bit late in the week, but they probably are going to be, just given. We like to try to spread out stuff throughout the week.
And then next week is
checking
our
the feed.
Next week is our big NFL Combine preview, and we probably should mention this. We probably should have mentioned it before, because I bet some people have already turned off the podcast. We're moving to Sundays, recording on Sundays.
We should have probably led with that, and I'll probably throw a disclaimer into the maybe into Scraps or something. I don't know. Who knows?
Sure. But anyways,
I might forget about that.
Moving to Sundays, recording
for the
Sunday
live
nights.
broadcast. For the live broadcast,
Yes.
yeah.
It'll be up on your podcast feed Mondays, starting next week's show.
We don't have the time set yet. It will probably be late. It'll be 6:30 or later Eastern. And something tells me that might depend on some of our own availabilities, depending on job and everything else.
The most important ability.
Availability. Job?
You won't find any Fatu Melifonwus out here.
Job? All right. For myself, find me on Blue Sky at Perfett, Jeremy Reisman at Detroit Online on Twitter/X, Ryan Matthews at Ryan_POD on that platform as well. We will see you Starside.
Recording stopped.
Recording stopped.
Oh,
Not
did your
running
guy
an
that
extra
was on IR end up on IR again? With the finger injury?
I thought we had.
Damn
I
it!
thought
Why
we had
didn't I leave the
stopped with
recorder
baby
running?
talk. No, I didn't want. No, we don't need Ryan mocking Lions players' injuries on any podcast feed.
Oh, it is not in earnest.
You've done enough making fun of Aiden Hutchinson's injury today.
Yeah, me running my victory lap like that was about. I'd like to see him run a victory lap. Running straight forward is not bending the edge.
Can we talk about the guy who tried to clap back at you with the worst possible clap back? For you in particular?
Please.
I'm not much on X anymore. What happened?
Okay, so Ryan had a semi-snarky tweet. So Aiden Hutchinson,
As he always does, yes.
As he always does.
Not always.
No,
I've backed down a bit. But yeah.
anyways, Aiden Hutchinson posts a clip of him running. It doesn't look like he's running full speed at all. It looks a little awkward. He always looks awkward when he runs, but it looks even more awkward.
Kind of stiff, a little heavy-footed.
Right, and so Ryan quote tweets in and is like, "Oh man, it sure is a shame that we didn't get to see him play in the Super Bowl like we all knew he would," or something, something of that effect, mocking the fact that people were believing that he would play for the Super Bowl.
WebMDing their way into thinking that they knew Aiden Hutchinson's injury and road to recovery.
Right, and someone didn't pick up on your sarcasm, which, in the day and age of Twitter, like, would it be ridiculous for someone to have tweeted what you tweeted in earnest? No, it's Twitter. So I don't completely fault them for that. But the funny part is he tried to clap at you like, "Oh, like you've ever broken your leg and required surgery and had to sit around for 3 hours or 3 months."
There we go.
And of course, if you don't know, Ryan got in a pretty serious car accident and had to do all of that.
Broke my leg.
Was it the same bones too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Tib Fib.
Literally the same injury.
Tib Fib did the same thing. And I didn't, and like everybody was like, "Oh, like you should have like sent him the X-ray." I was like, "No, like the only thing I could say was LMAO," and then
you could find out.
Eric goaded you into saying more.
Well, yeah, Eric was like, "Do you want to show?" Yeah, did you want to show him the X-ray? And I was like, "Of me after I hit my head with a hammer." Want an X-ray of my skull? Like, from that conversation and subsequent ones, you should have to pass a 4th grade literacy test to have a social media account. If you can't pass a 4th grade reading test, you are not allowed to be on social media.
You have to prove that you are not an AI.
Oh no, Twitter just lost all of its users.
Oh no, I don't think I would pass it though because I use M dashes. There was that article, right? Or the person on Twitter that was like, a dead giveaway of AI is when they use the N dash.
It's just like, oh, okay.
And I was
AP style
I've
book
been
is logged on.
I've been an Android for 10 years and I didn't know it.
yeah. It's like, man,
You have an Android phone? Wow.
I have an Android tablet that I actually don't like.
Oh, that's right, because Jeremy cheaped out on the tablet.
I did. I didn't go iPad, and I may regret it. Oh well, it's fine.
Oh well.
It can pull up recipes when I'm in the kitchen and need it, and play music. That's fine.
Liam, I didn't make it back for the Super Bowl. That was the thing. It's like, I tried, man. If Aiden thinks he can do this, I tried.
And honestly, like, if there's anyone that can do it, Ryan Matthews can do it. And so if he couldn't do it, then there was never a chance that Aiden could.
One of my favorite arguments was like, well, Aiden was the one who said he was going to do it, so you're really going to argue with Aiden? I'm like, yeah, I am. Because I just saw a video of him running in a straight line, not looking like he would be able to play football.
I was about to say, what is he, a doctor? And then I remembered his dad actually is a doctor.
An orthopedic surgeon, too.
Nice.
But honestly, that was one of the most annoying. I wish we had a POD award for that. Like, most annoying topic of the season. And number one with a bullet was Aiden Hutchinson's impending return. All they have to do is get to the Super Bowl, and Aiden Hutchinson will ride in like a white knight and get 6 sacks.
I wanted to believe Ryan. All right, what? Can't I just suspend my true disbelief for a little bit and just play with it?
No.
Just play along.
Dude, that was another argument. It was like, maybe that's how people felt comfort in like not
we were
seeing
going
reality.
through trauma, Ryan. We were going through trauma of losing every single defensive player on that roster.
All right, then believe fairy tales then.
Okay. Which one?
Nasty hobbitses.
Yeah, that's what exactly.
Um,
he could have covered punts, says Liam.
He could do that thing like at the very end of halves where he would like hide near the sideline.
Yeah, right. For an interception.
Yeah.
A surprise attack.
Right.
Again,
I do need to get through.
I keep the recorder going.
I do need to get through. Yeah, right. That's a pretty good conversation. I need to get through some alerts here. Because I missed some at the end of the last segment. And also, Rise the Beast is currently watching about an hour in the past. He's an hour behind, but also donating. So I'm going to talk about him. $5 from Rise the Beast, who says skip lagging isn't illegal. It just violates terms and conditions. We're not a legal podcast, so double check that first of all if you're listening and thinking about skip lagging.
I mean,
and if you don't know
we're
what skip
about to
lagging
enter
is, don't bother.
We're about to enter the era where those two things are indistinguishable from one another anyway. So, welcome to America.
And then he donated
$2. Yeah.
$2 just saying, also, I'm only halfway through the podcast, so there you go. Other alerts that I missed beforehand, which are important ones too, because Gent John followed and then subscribed using their Twitch Prime. Gent John, I'm going to assume you're from YouTube and followed my directions in the first break of creating a Twitch account, following us, and then using your Twitch Prime, in which case, thank you. Appreciate you.
Hell yeah.
Crumbs Lover, thank you for the follow as well. K-Fletch, 17 months, says, I made a live show. The second Twitch baby can't be delivered soon enough. Gonna have to wait a month, though. It'll be a free agency baby.
Bam, chicka, wow, wow.
Justin Singer, 36 months. That's 3 years and or 4 Twitch babies.
Just hate that there's a mathematical formula for Twitch babies.
I am so good at dividing by 9 now and dividing by 12. It's like, it's my superpower.
Nine's easy because they always taught you the method on how to do that in high school. No. It's always like it's -1. I mean, it's counting up a number. I mean, counting down a number from 9, subtract 1 from the other. No. It always the numbers always add up to 9, right? 2
Yes.
plus 7, 3 plus 6, 4 plus 5,
That's true.
5 plus 4. Yeah.
By the way, you describing that was very much like me describing squares for a second.
You took my joke. I was gonna say
Damn.
we found Chris's Super Bowl squares. Times tables.
I'm a medic of me remembering how to do 9 times from my 9 times tables from elementary school.
Both of them tables. Super Bowl squares and times tables. Now I just need to figure out what mine
Well, I don't
is.
have to gamble on my 9 times tables.
I know what yours isn't anymore, Ryan. It's not car talk anymore. We can't be sarcastic about not knowing anything about car talk anymore because you're a real life mechanic now.
I know why mechanics charge as much money as they do now.
Oh yeah,
I do.
Yeah,
I get
yeah.
it. I get it.
Yeah, yeah.
I understand
yeah,
why they do.
Yeah. That was the greatest thing, figuring out how to change my own oil during the pandemic.
Yeah. I had to replace.
Although,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, but now I've got I became last year a brand new car owner, and now I have like the maintenance package where it's like I don't even got to worry about that shit for a few years.
And all you got to do is schedule a service appointment. That's all you got to do.
Subaru is fantastic for that.
That's when you know you have the kind of money that you need to have in life.
It wasn't even that much. Like adding that, and it's like, yeah, no, I'm getting this financed for $30,000. Like,
Yep.
I'm groovy.
Nope. Like,
But what did you have to do?
I had to replace. The thing that bothered me the most was that it wasn't my mess up. It's my wife's car, and she's been putting this off for like weeks and weeks, and then finally I like drove it, and I was like, "What is going on with your car?" She's like, "Yeah, I was making a noise." I was like, "Okay, cool." So
First of all, I'm glad it's not my car.
Dude,
Although
your car's holding up like a champ.
Is it really? Good.
Like, and I say that, and it's probably gonna like die or something, but I'm gonna I'm gonna get that thing over the 200,000.
Hell yes.
Jesus Christ.
That's my goal.
Where are we at now? Do you know?
187.8.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So like it should happen in 2025.
Yeah.
Or like maybe just after.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, so my wife's car like had to replace. We had just done it within a year. Her back brakes. We had already changed them.
Oh no.
I get the wheel off. The rotor is like a quarter of an inch. The brake pad is nowhere to be found. The brake pad was off completely. So it was breaking the caliper and it was.
Look at you.
I don't know.
You're talking about car parts.
How did she
like
even
like a
break?
pro.
But
Oh,
I
look at
might not
this.
even be making any sense. I might still
All
be
the
lying.
parts your car will ever need, Rock Auto.
But I had to replace the brake pads, caliper, rotor, and then also the speed sensor. Because that was the thing is we thought that went wrong with it is because the ABS light is on in the car.
Oh
And
God.
I don't know if because like when we took the caliper off, we were like, where's the brake pad? And then like we like took the rotor off. When the rotor came off, like the brake pad fell out. I was like, oh, it's just sitting at the bottom of whatever. Like just a disaster, a mess. But like, so we had to replace the speed sensor, and like it took 5 hours. Like that was my day. Like my day was just
Terrible.
being a mechanic, and not only being a mechanic, but having my father-in-law who had the patience to like coach me through all of this, because I wouldn't have been able to coach me through this.
YouTube videos, baby. That's what it's all about.
Your turn.
By the way, Michael Lucci's from YouTube has a really good question. He asked, "Will the old brakes be available for the Super Bowl?"
All right.
Hey, but did you get a sense of accomplishment after it? Because like this is gonna show how much of a loser I am. But like I definitely did when I changed my tire one time when I got a flat. Like I was like, oh look at me, big adult, changing my tire on the side of the road.
I would had I not been cosplaying as the kid with the flashlight for the first like hour of while we were doing all of this, because my father-in-law was very like he was pushing it too much because he has a bad back, and like he told my wife, he was like, hey, I just need to have someone who can like actually do a lot of the physical stuff because like my back's just not in shape,
Right.
dude, right now. And but for the first hour, he like very much wanted to do everything. So I was literally 33-year-old me, just like make sure I'm holding the light in the right spot,
You
so
were
like my
The
dad
kid at
doesn't
the
yell at me.
the
Yeah.
kid at the very beginning of The Fifth Element.
Yes.
If you Aziz light.
Yeah. That was me.
God.
So at the very beginning, it was very like, I don't feel any sense of accomplishment. Like I'm just like, and then when all of the lights were on me, I was a cockroach for the first like hour. Like breaking bolts and like getting stuff, and like I like bloodied my
Hell yeah.
knuckles within like the first
yeah.
within the first like 30 minutes.
Build
And
some
my
callus, baby.
dude, my father-in-law saw it through my glove. Like I was bleeding through my glove, and he goes, "Oh, hey." And I was like, I was so in the weeds that like I didn't even know I was bleeding. I was just like, I'm worried
Nice.
about making an ass of myself.
I love it.
And yeah, so it was fun. I highly recommend it. So that's why I'm so committed to getting that Honda over 200,000 miles, because not having a car payment is a cheat code in life.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
don't have a car payment and
I
you're
have
paying
one,
your
but-
insurance every 6 months,
Yeah.
you're
Nice.
rich in America.
I have a car payment, but also like I was basically talked into it because I was going to be like, yeah, I've got cash for it. It's like, oh, we've got a nice APR and you don't really need to do this. I'm like, all right.
Scammed.
Scammed.
Yeah, scammed on a 4% APR. Yeah.
Damien Chat.
Really good rate.
I'm sorry, Damien Smith, £2 super chat says Sam Darnold's contract is voided JJ season. I'm assuming that was planned. If that's true, Sam Darnold's contract voiding, like that just happens. In
Someone
certain
mentioned that
phases of
earlier,
the-
but I didn't see it anywhere, so I wasn't quite sure when to break in with that.
I would not say that necessarily means they won't re-sign him, although I think it's fair to wonder if they will. I don't know what what that triggers. Like, I'm assuming if it voided, that means there were void years. So I don't know how many that hit. Like what his dead cap is. I haven't looked at his contract. I also don't really care.
Must have heard about that nice APR on TikTok.
What do you think the Vikings end up doing with Darnold?
I think they let him walk.
It's starting to feel like they're just going to let him walk.
Do you think they would
Which feels
franchise
interesting.
tag him?
No.
Not a
It's
quarterback,
expensive.
no.
Nah.
It is expensive, but can you explain away that cost by saying, well, we have a quarterback on a rookie contract and we can afford to pay a premium for a backup, or in the other term, we can franchise tag him and then try to find a trade?
Why didn't I keep the recorder rolling for any of this?
Maybe, but to me, I think you're like, oh, we're gonna have a rookie quarterback who's only kind of a rookie, like he's at least learned our whole system, and that's a cheat code in the NFL, right? Like that's your You want to talk windows? That's a really unique, helpful window. It's something
If the
that
knees hold up.
the Texans are currently in, right? They're in the CJ Stroud rookie contract window. Like if you're in that,
Just had to fire their offensive coordinator though. Yikes.
true. But like you can make splashes elsewhere when you're
Mhm.
in that window. Now the Vikings have a ton of cap room and a ton of guys that they need to re-sign. Like their defense is old and filled with free agents, and maybe a lot of their money is spent there. But to me, if you have rookie quarterback on a rookie deal, you don't spend all of that extra money that you're saving on a quarterback.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, like someone mentioned in chat, transition tag, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
I'll be honest, I'm not that familiar with a transition tag. I have to do a little more research on that because some people have asked me about the Lions using transition tag, like maybe on Carlton Davis. And I know it's cheaper, but I don't know, like, it's not just like, hey, here's a cheap deal. It's like there's some sort of thing that comes with it, right? Like other teams can negotiate with the transition tag.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Yep.
Nah, I don't know.
As I'm reading here, it's a non-exclusive, right? So yeah, non-exclusive franchise tender.
guarantees the original club the right of refusal to match any offer that the player may make with another team. Tries to say we use once a year. Blah blah blah.
Like in 2024, there's one team who used it, and it was the Patriots. They used it on Kyle Duggar, who I think they came to a
Duggar.
long-term agreement with eventually. If I'm not mistaken. Yep. Signed a 4-year, $58 million contract.
There you go. I don't know.
It's a way to test the waters, though, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Mm.
You can just
'Cause
get yourself in trouble. Like, if someone offers you something that you're not willing to pay them, you're kind of screwed.
True.
Yeah. Yep. All right. It's almost 8, so we should get out of here. We don't want to get.
Yes.
You said 8:40 was you're not going to get divorced. I don't know, or 7:40 you weren't going to get divorced. What? I don't know if 8 is still in that range.
Chris, I left my wife.
Cancun, baby. Sorry, no. Sorry. Let me do over. I'm sorry. That's the wrong talking. Punta Cana, baby.
Oh man.
All right. Yeah. As Chris said, we'll be back Wednesday morning for the midweek mailbag.
Tiki Tuesday for myself tomorrow.
There you go. Twitch.tv/no decaf for that. NODEKAF.
I don't even know what I'm gonna do. Like I'm once again coming to grips that I just don't like streaming games. But we'll talk for a while. It's a nice
There you go.
2-3 hour stream.
And then Sunday is when the POD cast is going to be live again. Sundays for our NFL Combine preview, which means someone has to start doing a lot of research on the draft in the next 5 days. All right. We'll see you guys soon.